I drowned on a Tuesday. I'm fairly sure of that part. I'd just eaten. Went for a walk along the old moat behind my building. Then a cold wind came up off the water, wrong somehow, like the air had teeth, and it dragged me in. I went under. At some point I stopped fighting. That was the last thing that belonged to my old life. The next thing I felt was stone. Wet stone under my back, and someone leaning over me. I coughed up half a lake and opened my eyes. A girl was crouched there, studying me like a fish she wasn't sure was dead yet. Pink gray hair, bright green eyes, and fox ears, real ones, twitching on top of her head, a big tail sweeping the ground behind her. Costume, I thought. Then a voice went off inside my skull. Cold. Calm. Not hers. Host transfer confirmed. World stable. Binding. The codex of all things. First arrival detected. Farming module granted. Enjoy your journey. That's when it landed. The river hadn't killed me. It had moved me. I wasn't on Earth anymore, and the fox-eared girl staring at me was as real as the water still in my lungs. Her name was Ingluo. Once she decided I wasn't an idiot, she grabbed my arm like I might bolt. You're coming home with me, she said. Our place needs more hands, or we don't survive the winter. I pulled you out. That makes you mine to bring back. I didn't get a vote. She hauled me up, dragged me through a stand of brush, and the world fell open. We were standing at the edge of a cliff that went down forever. Below us wasn't ground. It was a sea of clouds, lit gold by the setting sun, and something was moving through it. Huge shapes, rising and rolling under the surface. Whales. Whales the size of ships, swimming in the sky, their calls echoing off the rock. The system filled in the rest, dropping the knowledge straight into my head. This place was called the Wall. The whole world was a single vertical cliff, broken into ledges like a staircase of farmland, and people clung to wherever they could find a foothold. Ingluo and I were near the very bottom. And the bottom was the dangerous part. Because every night, things climbed up out of the dark. Creatures that hated everything alive, scaling the cliff face to hunt whatever they found on the ledges. So that was the math. Sundown was coming. If I didn't have walls and a roof before the light went, I was meat. And the only shelter on offer belonged to a fox-eared stranger who decided she owned me. I stopped resisting and let her lead. While we walked, I poked at the thing in my head. The codex. It worked like a game I'd half played back home. A farm where you drop a seed, and it grows 100 times too fast, then yields 10 times too much. Real food. Out of nothing. As long as I had a seed to start. That alone could keep a person alive forever. But the codex had a second trick. Every time I met a new kind of beastfolk, that's what they were, people carrying the ears and tails and gifts of animals. The system logged an entry and handed me a sliver of whatever made them special. Logging Ingluo gave me something called Sun's Blessing. In daylight, I moved faster and thought clearer. A free upgrade for the price of paying attention. The home was a hidden ledge behind a knife-thin gap in the rock, a slot barely wide enough for one body, with nothing but the abyss on the far side. You'd never find it unless you already knew. Through it was a courtyard and a cave. For more of them lived there. There was Gigi, a tiny mouse girl with ears like fans, who took one look at me and screamed the news to the whole cliff. There was Huaiwe, the cat, who laughed at everything and cooked over the fire. There was Yoli, the snake, green-scaled, sharp-eyed, the only one who looked at me like she was deciding where to put the spear. Her opinion of me, the system informed me, was somewhere south of zero. And there was Zhuohua. She came out of the cave last, and she was clearly in charge. Soft voice, steady eyes. Old enough, it turned out, to have seen the world up above before she ended up down here. She took my hands, apologized for Ingluo's manners, and listened, actually listened, when I told her the truth. That I'd fallen out of another world entirely. The others gawked. Zhuohua just thought it over and nodded. I've never heard of anything like you, she said. But I believe you. And you've got nowhere to go. She let a beat pass. An extra mouth is still an extra pair of hands. Out here, a living person is the most precious thing there is. Stay. I stayed. Now I had to earn it. Because in a place this poor, you're worth exactly what you can put on the fire. And these 5 were one bad season from starving. So I did the obvious thing. I showed off. It started small. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Too hot. Too strange. And I ended up by the fire next to Yoli, the snake who hated me. She was roasting a sad little potato in the coals. I took out something the system had handed me as a starter gift, a pouch of fine salt. Down here, salt was bitter, gritty, and rarer than gold. She thought I was offering her sand. I tasted it first to prove it wasn't poison, then watched her try a pinch. Her eyes went wide. She dumped the whole leaf onto her potato and ate it in about 4 bites. This is salt. Why isn't it bitter? Because it's the good stuff, I said. The way to anyone's heart, it turns out, runs straight through their stomach. By morning, she'd stopped looking at me like a target. Then came the real trick. The next evening, I gathered all 5 of them, and into the empty air in front of me, I dropped 20 kilos of fresh potatoes. Perfect ones. Out of nowhere. They stared like the ground had opened. Zhuohua rubbed her eyes twice before she believed it. Where did these come from? Me, I said. It's what I do. And there's more where that came from. No one in this house goes hungry again. That was the moment Zhuohua decided I was never leaving. You don't let go of the person who can feed you forever. That night she pulled me aside, away from the fire, and made it plain. The winters here were killers. Wind screaming straight up the cliff with nothing to break it, the ears freezing off your head. Every autumn the whole household scrambled to stockpile food, weaving baskets to trade with the merchants who passed through, never quite gathering enough. She wanted me to stay for good, and she was honest about why. You can feed us, she said. That makes you the most valuable thing on this ledge. So you stay, and I'll see that the others come around. I told her I had nowhere else to be anyway. We had a deal. For a few days, it almost felt safe. Then the cliff reminded me where I was. It was the second night. I was out by the fire when the smell hit me. Rot, thick enough to gag on. Yoli was already up, spear in both hands, those slit eyes scanning the dark. Get inside, she said. Their blood is poison. Don't get in my way. 3 of them came over the edge. Hunched, hairless things, pale as corpses, ribs showing through gray skin, dog-skulled mouths crowded with fangs. They came up out of the abyss snarling, claws still gritty from the climb. Yuli didn't flinch. She was nearly 6 feet of coiled muscle, and she fought like she'd done it 1,000 nights. Spears sweeping, driving them back, then a sudden thrust. One of them shrieked as the point punched clean through. She lifted it off its feet and flung it screaming back into the clouds. The other 2 didn't last much longer. I just crouched in the cave mouth and watched, heart slamming. Because I knew the truth. If those things had come for me, I'd be dead. Whatever I wasn't a fighter. Not yet. But it settled something in my chest. Out there I was prey. In here, with them, I had a chance. They could kill me 100 times over, but you don't run from the only roof that'll have you. The days that followed, I learned the shape of this world a piece at a time. I learned that Zhuohua wasn't human. None of them quite were. But she came closest, and she came from up above. She was a salamander, of all things, 54 years old and a face that looked 19. Long-lived species. And she carried a gift the others didn't. A thing called a spirit meridian, which let her draw a kind of energy out of the very air and grow stronger from it. Awakening one was rare. Climbing to a higher tier of it was rarer still. Most of her kind lived and died on the first rung. She'd long since made peace with never going further. I also learned the system had a catch. Logging Zhuohua had handed me her best trick. Instant clotting, a wound sealing itself the second it opened. But not her full salamander regeneration, the kind that grows back a severed limb. A sliver, not the whole. Still, between her clotting, Yoli's night vision, and a few other passives I'd skimmed off the household, I was quietly becoming harder to kill. And I learned how the whole economy of my codex worked, sitting by the fire one sleepless midnight while Yuli stood watch. The farm grew crops. The crops sold for points. Points bought goods from a store, tools, seeds, canned food, even bricks, and points spun a gacha wheel that unlocked new goods and the occasional rare item. Logging a new Beastfolk species opened the store's shelves. The wheel filled them. A closed loop. The system, congratulating itself, even tossed me a free 10 pull to get started. Mostly junk, but 2 prizes that mattered out here more than any weapon. A Swiss Army knife, a whole toolbox folded into one handle, and a full pound of pure salt. That salt was the real treasure. And it was the salt that finally cracked Yuli open, the bitter-free taste of it doing what nothing else had. Her number ticked up from below 0, past it, into the green. By the end of the first week, I'd found my footing. I lazed while the others foraged. The system kept me fed, and the household kept me alive. The only real cost was the gnawing shortage of points. Every plot of farmland cost more than the last to open. Every gacha pull burned 100 just to spin, and the slow, grinding worry of where the next windfall came from. Then the sky dropped one in my lap. It was Gigi, who came tearing home mid-morning, ears flapping, words tumbling out faster than sense. We finally untangled it. Something had fallen out of the upper world. Something with wings. When Zhuohua heard wings, her whole face changed. Did it have a ring of light over its head? She asked. Quiet. Careful. It did. We found her at the bottom of a slope. A girl in a white robe soaked dark with her own blood, golden hair and bloodied white feathers fanned across the dirt, pointed ears tipped pink. She looked like something an artist would draw if you asked for angel and elf at the same time. Above her head, flickering, almost burned out, spun a dim red ring of light. The system was already reading her for me, and the number it showed for how she felt about us made my stomach drop. -100. Zhuohua went pale and started shoving us back. Move. Before we get tangled up in this. She is not someone you want to owe. I'd never seen our kindest one ready to leave a dying girl in the dirt. I didn't understand, until Zhuohua told me what the wings and the ring meant. A sky elf. The species up top that looked down on everything below and built things to enforce it. Iron things, Zhuohua said, and for the first time she sounded afraid. Machines, shaped like them. If we save this one and she turns on us, she calls them down, and they wipe out everything we have. And there it was. The detail that broke my brain a little. Because the system had just finished logging her and handed me my reward, a new passive ability, the same way the fox had, the same way the snake had. The ability was this: the power to seize control of a single machine within 5,000 meters. I stood there in a world of cliffs and cloud whales and spear-fighting beastfolk, holding a power that only made sense if this world had machines in it. Swords and monsters I could handle, but mechanical soldiers, falling from a sky kingdom that wanted us all dead, that wasn't the story I thought I'd landed in. And at my feet, the elf's eyes cracked open. One word, barely a breath. Save me. Zhuohua had already turned to leave. But the elf wasn't done. She spent what looked like the last of her strength dragging the words out. I swear, my cluster won't come for you. I'll repay you. Enough to make it worth your while. Just don't go. Then her eyes rolled back and she was gone again, limp in the dirt. That stopped Zhuohua. I watched her weigh it. The danger of the iron soldiers against the promise of a reward, and finally let out a long breath. Yoli, carry her back. Later, walking home, I asked Zhuohua why she'd changed her mind. She gave me a thin smile. Their kind are arrogant, and their reputation up top is filthy, she said. But they keep their word. If she's begging us herself and offering payment. She shrugged. Then we've caught ourselves a fat sheep. We'll see what she's worth. We settled the elf. Her name, the system told me, was Dilia, onto a bed in the cave. Her wounds weren't even that bad. The bleeding had long since stopped. She just lost too much blood and dropped into something deeper than sleep. We cleaned her up, fought the dried blood out of those white feathers, and boiled water to wash the cuts so they wouldn't turn. With no cloth to spare, I sacrificed the hood off the one hoodie I'd carried over from Earth, cut it loose with the army knife, boiled it 3 times, and used it for a rag. And then we waited, because Dilia did not wake. Day after day she lay there like a corpse, not eating, not stirring, until I caught myself checking her breath just to be sure. It crowded our sleeping space and rearranged the whole cave, but mostly it left me staring at a power I had no idea how to use. Machine control, in a household where dinner was still roasted over an open fire. So I went back to the only thing that reliably paid, the farm. The math was brutal. One plot of potatoes earned 20 points a day. The next plot cost 400 to open, the same price as an iron pot, and the cost kept climbing. 2 days of potatoes just to break even on a single plot, and falling further behind every time I expanded. What I needed wasn't more dirt. It was a better crop. So I started foraging, dragging up wild greens and flowers by the root, testing each one against the farm. The system refused them all. Ordinary weeds wouldn't take. There was some rule about what counted as a real crop, and common scrub didn't clear the bar, which made a grim kind of sense. Every vegetable on Earth started as a weed somebody spent 1,000 years taming. I wasn't going to shortcut that in an afternoon. I'd almost given up when a small yellow-green flower caught my eye. It looked like nothing, a dandelionish puff of tiny white florets that wouldn't scatter in the wind, the kind of thing you'd crush underfoot without noticing. But I'd seen this exact plant before, in 100 half-watch videos back home. My heart started going. If I was right, I reached down and tried to take it into the farm. It went in. No resistance. And the farm did something I'd never seen. It didn't sprout or flower or fruit. It just started counting years. Ginseng, the king of herbs. And special crops, apparently, played by special rules. Instead of growing and ripening, they aged, and the older they got, the more they were worth. The root sitting in my plot was already 134 years old, and the system priced it at 1,340 points. 10 points a year, climbing forever. I sold it on the spot. No sense sitting on a fortune and inviting trouble. Ing Luo, who'd been guiding me through the foraging grounds, just blinked at the empty patch of dirt where the flower used to be. She didn't think much of it. She did, though, helpfully mention that Gigi had once pulled one of those up and eaten it, and bled from the nose for half a day afterward, then swore Ing Luo to secrecy so Zhuohua wouldn't scold her. Our tiny mouse girl had eaten a century-old ginseng root like a radish and nearly overdosed on the most potent medicine in the world. I asked Ing Luo if she knew where more of them grew. She didn't, not exactly, but she promised to keep an eye out. I told her not to pick any herself. Whatever she did to it, she'd ruin it, and a ruined root was worth nothing. The real lesson wasn't the money. It was the realization that this ledge, poor, abandoned, the bottom of the whole world, had never been picked over. Out here, in untouched wild, valuable medicine was just lying around for anyone who knew what to look for. I'd found my fast money, a windfall of 1,300 points. I spent it carefully, 200 to open a new plot. No more than that, since at my pathetic output, hoarding land just bled me dry. The rest went on things the household actually needed. For 100 bought an iron pot. Until then, they'd been boiling everything in a cracked clay jar that half the time couldn't even cook food through, and my stomach, soft, modern, nothing like theirs, was not built for half-raw dinners. The first time I built a little stone hearth and boiled up a real pot of meat broth, Huiwei circled the thing with her gold eyes blown wide. I drowned on a Tuesday. I'm fairly sure of that part. I'd just eaten. Went for a walk along the old moat behind my building. Then a cold wind came up off the water, wrong somehow, like the air had teeth, and it dragged me in. I went under. At some point I stopped fighting. That was the last thing that belonged to my old life. The next thing I felt was stone. Wet stone under my back, and someone leaning over me. I coughed up half a lake and opened my eyes. A girl was crouched there, studying me like a fish she wasn't sure was dead yet. Pink gray hair, bright green eyes, and fox ears, real ones, twitching on top of her head, a big tail sweeping the ground behind her. Costume, I thought. Then a voice went off inside my skull. Cold. Calm. Not hers. Host transfer confirmed. World stable. Binding. The codex of all things. First arrival detected. Farming module granted. Enjoy your journey. That's when it landed. The river hadn't killed me. It had moved me. I wasn't on Earth anymore, and the fox-eared girl staring at me was as real as the water still in my lungs. Her name was Ing Luo. Once she decided I wasn't an idiot, she grabbed my arm like I might bolt. You're coming home with me, she said. Our place needs more hands, or we don't survive the winter. I pulled you out. That makes you mine to bring back. I didn't get a vote. She hauled me up, dragged me through a stand of brush, and the world fell open. We were standing at the edge of a cliff that went down forever. Below us wasn't ground. It was a sea of clouds, lit gold by the setting sun, and something was moving through it. Huge shapes, rising and rolling under the surface. Whales. Whales the size of ships, swimming in the sky, their calls echoing off the rock. The system filled in the rest, dropping the knowledge straight into my head. This place was called the Wall. The whole world was a single vertical cliff, broken into ledges like a staircase of farmland, and people clung to wherever they could find a foothold. Ing Luo and I were near the very bottom. And the bottom was the dangerous part. Because every night, things climbed up out of the dark. Creatures that hated everything alive, scaling the cliff face to hunt whatever they found on the ledges. So that was the math. Sundown was coming. If I didn't have walls and a roof before the light went, I was meat. And the only shelter on offer belonged to a fox-eared stranger who decided she owned me. I stopped resisting and let her lead. While we walked, I poked at the thing in my head. The codex. It worked like a game I'd half played back home. A farm where you drop a seed, and it grows 100 times too fast, then yields 10 times too much. Real food. Out of nothing. As long as I had a seed to start. That alone could keep a person alive forever. But the Codex had a second trick. Every time I met a new kind of beast folk, that's what they were, people carrying the ears and tails and gifts of animals. The system logged an entry and handed me a sliver of whatever made them special. Logging Ingluo gave me something called Sun's Blessing. In daylight, I moved faster and thought clearer. A free upgrade for the price of paying attention. The home was a hidden ledge behind a knife-thin gap in the rock, a slot barely wide enough for one body, with nothing but the abyss on the far side. You'd never find it unless you already knew. Through it was a courtyard and a cave. For more of them lived there. There was Gigi, a tiny mouse girl with ears like fans, who took one look at me and screamed the news to the whole cliff. There was Huaiwe, the cat, who laughed at everything and cooked over the fire. There was Yoli, the snake, green-scaled, sharp-eyed, the only one who looked at me like she was deciding where to put the spear. Her opinion of me, the system informed me, was somewhere south of zero. And there was Zhuohua. She came out of the cave last, and she was clearly in charge. Soft voice, steady eyes. Old enough, it turned out, to have seen the world up above before she ended up down here. She took my hands, apologized for Ingluo's manners, and listened, actually listened, when I told her the truth. That I'd fallen out of another world entirely. The others gawked. Zhuohua just thought it over and nodded. I've never heard of anything like you, she said. But I believe you. And you've got nowhere to go. She let a beat pass. An extra mouth is still an extra pair of hands. Out here, a living person is the most precious thing there is. Stay. I stayed. Now I had to earn it. Because in a place this poor, you're worth exactly what you can put on the fire. And these 5 were one bad season from starving. So I did the obvious thing. I showed off. It started small. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Too hot. Too strange. And I ended up by the fire next to Yoli, the snake who hated me. She was roasting a sad little potato in the coals. I took out something the system had handed me as a starter gift, a pouch of fine salt. Down here, salt was bitter, gritty, and rarer than gold. She thought I was offering her sand. I tasted it first to prove it wasn't poison, then watched her try a pinch. Her eyes went wide. She dumped the whole leaf onto her potato and ate it in about 4 bites. This is salt. Why isn't it bitter? Because it's the good stuff, I said. The way to anyone's heart, it turns out, runs straight through their stomach. By morning, she'd stopped looking at me like a target. Then came the real trick. The next evening, I gathered all 5 of them, and into the empty air in front of me, I dropped 20 kilos of fresh potatoes. Perfect ones. Out of nowhere. They stared like the ground had opened. Zhuohua rubbed her eyes twice before she believed it. Where did these come from? Me, I said. It's what I do. And there's more where that came from. No one in this house goes hungry again. That was the moment Zhuohua decided I was never leaving. You don't let go of the person who can feed you forever. That night she pulled me aside, away from the fire, and made it plain. The winters here were killers. Wind screaming straight up the cliff with nothing to break it, the ears freezing off your head. Every autumn the whole household scrambled to stockpile food, weaving baskets to trade with the merchants who passed through, never quite gathering enough. She wanted me to stay for good, and she was honest about why. You can feed us, she said. That makes you the most valuable thing on this ledge. So you stay, and I'll see that the others come around. I told her I had nowhere else to be anyway. We had a deal. For a few days, it almost felt safe. Then the cliff reminded me where I was. It was the second night. I was out by the fire when the smell hit me. Rot, thick enough to gag on. Yoli was already up, spear in both hands, those slit eyes scanning the dark. Get inside, she said. Their blood is poison. Don't get in my way. 3 of them came over the edge. Hunched, hairless things, pale as corpses, ribs showing through gray skin, dog-skulled mouths crowded with fangs. They came up out of the abyss snarling, claws still gritty from the climb. Yoli didn't flinch. She was nearly 6 feet of coiled muscle, and she fought like she'd done it 1,000 nights. Spears sweeping, driving them back, then a sudden thrust. One of them shrieked as the point punched clean through. She lifted it off its feet and flung it screaming back into the clouds. The other 2 didn't last much longer. I just crouched in the cave mouth and watched, heart slamming. Because I knew the truth. If those things had come for me, I'd be dead. Whatever I wasn't a fighter. Not yet. But it settled something in my chest. Out there I was prey. In here, with them, I had a chance. They could kill me 100 times over, but you don't run from the only roof that'll have you. The days that followed, I learned the shape of this world a piece at a time. I learned that Zhuohua wasn't human. None of them quite were. But she came closest, and she came from up above. She was a salamander, of all things, 54 years old and a face that looked 19. Long-lived species. And she carried a gift the others didn't. A thing called a spirit meridian, which let her draw a kind of energy out of the very air and grow stronger from it. Awakening one was rare. Climbing to a higher tier of it was rarer still. Most of her kind lived and died on the first rung. She'd long since made peace with never going further. I also learned the system had a catch. Logging Zhuohua had handed me her best trick. Instant clotting, a wound sealing itself the second it opened. But not her full salamander regeneration, the kind that grows back a severed limb. A sliver, not the whole. Still, between her clotting, Yuli's night vision, and a few other passives I'd skimmed off the household, I was quietly becoming harder to kill. And I learned how the whole economy of my codex worked, sitting by the fire one sleepless midnight while Yuli stood watch. The farm grew crops. The crops sold for points. Points bought goods from a store, tools, seeds, canned food, even bricks, and points spun a gacha wheel that unlocked new goods and the occasional rare item. Logging a new Beastfolk species opened the store's shelves. The wheel filled them. A closed loop. The system, congratulating itself, even tossed me a free 10 pull to get started. Mostly junk, but two prizes that mattered out here more than any weapon. A Swiss Army knife, a whole toolbox folded into one handle, and a full pound of pure salt. That salt was the real treasure. And it was the salt that finally cracked Yuli open, the bitter-free taste of it doing what nothing else had. Her number ticked up from below 0, past it, into the green. By the end of the first week, I'd found my footing. I lazed while the others foraged. The system kept me fed, and the household kept me alive. The only real cost was the gnawing shortage of points. Every plot of farmland cost more than the last to open. Every gacha pull burned 100 just to spin, and the slow, grinding worry of where the next windfall came from. Then the sky dropped one in my lap. It was Gigi who came tearing home mid-morning, ears flapping, words tumbling out faster than sense. We finally untangled it. Something had fallen out of the upper world. Something with wings. When Zhuohua heard wings, her whole face changed. Did it have a ring of light over its head? She asked. Quiet. Careful. It did. We found her at the bottom of a slope. A girl in a white robe soaked dark with her own blood, golden hair and bloodied white feathers fanned across the dirt, pointed ears tipped pink. She looked like something an artist would draw if you asked for angel and elf at the same time. Above her head, flickering, almost burned out, spun a dim red ring of light. The system was already reading her for me, and the number it showed for how she felt about us made my stomach drop. -100. Zhuohua went pale and started shoving us back. Move. Before we get tangled up in this. She is not someone you want to owe. I'd never seen our kindest one ready to leave a dying girl in the dirt. I didn't understand, until Zhuohua told me what the wings and the ring meant. A sky elf. The species up top that looked down on everything below and built things to enforce it. Iron things, Zhuohua said, and for the first time she sounded afraid. Machines, shaped like them. If we save this one and she turns on us, she calls them down, and they wipe out everything we have. And there it was. The detail that broke my brain a little. Because the system had just finished logging her and handed me my reward. A new passive ability. The same way the fox had. The same way the snake had. The ability was this. The power to seize control of a single machine within 5,000 meters. I stood there in a world of cliffs and cloud whales and spear-fighting beastfolk, holding a power that only made sense if this world had machines in it. Swords and monsters I could handle. But mechanical soldiers, falling from a sky kingdom that wanted us all dead, that wasn't the story I thought I'd landed in. And at my feet, the elf's eyes cracked open. One word, barely a breath. Save me. Zhuohua had already turned to leave. But the elf wasn't done. She spent what looked like the last of her strength dragging the words out. I swear, my cluster won't come for you. I'll repay you. Enough to make it worth your while. Just don't go. Then her eyes rolled back and she was gone again, limp in the dirt. That stopped Zhuohua. I watched her weigh it. The danger of the iron soldiers against the promise of a reward. And finally let out a long breath. Yoli, carry her back. Later, walking home, I asked Zhuohua why she'd changed her mind. She gave me a thin smile. Their kind are arrogant, and their reputation up top is filthy, she said. But they keep their word. If she's begging us herself and offering payment, she shrugged. Then we've caught ourselves a fat sheep. We'll see what she's worth. We settled the elf. Her name, the system told me, was Delia, onto a bed in the cave. Her wounds weren't even that bad. The bleeding had long since stopped. She just lost too much blood and dropped into something deeper than sleep. We cleaned her up, fought the dried blood out of those white feathers, and boiled water to wash the cuts so they wouldn't turn. With no cloth to spare, I sacrificed the hood off the one hoodie I'd carried over from Earth, cut it loose with the army knife, boiled it 3 times, and used it for a rag. And then we waited, because Delia did not wake. Day after day she lay there like a corpse, not eating, not stirring, until I caught myself checking her breath just to be sure. It crowded our sleeping space and rearranged the whole cave, but mostly it left me staring at a power I had no idea how to use. Machine control, in a household where dinner was still roasted over an open fire. So I went back to the only thing that reliably paid, the farm. The math was brutal. One plot of potatoes earned 20 points a day. The next plot cost 400 to open, the same price as an iron pot, and the cost kept climbing. 2 days of potatoes just to break even on a single plot, and falling further behind every time I expanded. What I needed wasn't more dirt. It was a better crop. So I started foraging, dragging up wild greens and flowers by the root, testing each one against the farm. The system refused them all. Ordinary weeds wouldn't take. There was some rule about what counted as a real crop, and common scrub didn't clear the bar, which made a grim kind of sense. Every vegetable on Earth started as a weed somebody spent 1,000 years taming. I wasn't going to shortcut that in an afternoon. I'd almost given up when a small yellow-green flower caught my eye. It looked like nothing, a dandelionish puff of tiny white florets that wouldn't scatter in the wind, the kind of thing you'd crush underfoot without noticing. But I'd seen this exact plant before, in 100 half-watched videos back home. My heart started going. If I was right, I reached down and tried to take it into the farm. It went in. No resistance. And the farm did something I'd never seen. It didn't sprout or flower or fruit. It just started counting years. Ginseng, the king of herbs. And special crops, apparently, played by special rules. Instead of growing and ripening, they aged, and the older they got, the more they were worth. The root sitting in my plot was already 134 years old, and the system priced it at 1,340 points. 10 points a year, climbing forever. I sold it on the spot. No sense sitting on a fortune and inviting trouble. Ingluo, who'd been guiding me through the foraging grounds, just blinked at the empty patch of dirt where the flower used to be. She didn't think much of it. She did, though, helpfully mention that Gigi had once pulled one of those up and eaten it, and bled from the nose for half a day afterward, then swore Ingluo to secrecy so Zhuohua wouldn't scold her. Our tiny mouse girl had eaten a century-old ginseng root like a radish and nearly overdosed on the most potent medicine in the world. I asked Ingluo if she knew where more of them grew. She didn't, not exactly, but she promised to keep an eye out. I told her not to pick any herself. Whatever she did to it, she'd ruin it, and a ruined root was worth nothing. The real lesson wasn't the money. It was the realization that this ledge, poor, abandoned, the bottom of the whole world, had never been picked over. Out here, in untouched wild, valuable medicine was just lying around for anyone who knew what to look for. I'd found my fast money, a windfall of 1,300 points. I spent it carefully, 200 to open a new plot. No more than that, since at my pathetic output, hoarding land just bled me dry. The rest went on things the household actually needed. For 100 bought an iron pot. Until then they'd been boiling everything in a cracked clay jar that half the time couldn't even cook food through, and my stomach, soft, modern, nothing like theirs, was not built for half-raw dinners. The first time I built a little stone hearth and boiled up a real pot of meat broth, Huiwei circled the thing with her gold eyes blown wide. This round thing is amazing, way faster than the clay pot, thank you. Her number jumped. She loved to cook, I realized. 400 points well spent. 500 more bought an iron spear, and after dinner I handed it to Yoli. Pure white iron, 3 meters long, 15 kilos, heavy as a sharpened steel beam, more than anyone but her could even swing. Against those dog-skulled things it would punch straight through and out the other side. She took it in both hands, and her cold face did something I'd never seen it do. It warmed. "This is for me?" she asked, careful, like she expected to be wrong. I told her it was. Now when the monsters came, she'd be ready. She shook her head when I offered to let her go test it, and gave me the faintest ghost of a smile. "It's heavy," she said. "I like it." Her number climbed again. 2 purchases meant to make life a little easier, and I'd quietly won over the one who used to want me dead. Then came a stretch where the points came faster. I joined the foraging runs, and even though I couldn't name a single herb, I tested every strange-looking thing I found against the farm, and it paid off. In 1 week, I pulled in over 6,000 points off medicine alone, enough that I finally stopped feeling poor. I opened the farm out to 5 plots and spent the rest hard on the household. A bag of cotton seeds, so I could spin thread, better than grass rope for binding and stitching, and maybe one day the gotcha would cough up an actual loom. Then I blew 3,000 on a 30 pull and got a row of genuinely useful things. A quilt, a set of warm padded clothes, medical alcohol, a sack of cement, and a strange blue capsule I couldn't identify, which I shelved for later. The pull also unlocked new shelves in the store, cement and red brick, the 2 building materials I'd need to wall off that drafty cave mouth before winter turned it lethal. And 1,000 points went to a seasoning bundle: soy sauce, vinegar, MSG, a small drum of cooking oil. My original salt was nearly gone. By the time the dust settled, I was down to a few hundred points and already itching for more. So Ingluo and I went back out hunting herbs. Once she figured out that all the good food came from those weird little flowers, my fox lost all interest in greens and berries and threw herself into the hunt, nose down, tail going, muttering herbs, herbs. Where are the herbs at every patch of scrub? It was the most adorable thing I'd seen all week. We came up empty all morning. The truth is our ledge is just too picked bare and poor. You have to climb higher to find much. And her ears had drooped clear down by the time I suggested we head back. She wouldn't have it. "Let's go a little farther." Past the usual range was technically other tribes' territory, but she swore she knew the way, and a little farther we went. And a little farther was where the furious voice came from. "That ginseng plant is mine. You don't get to take it." I just dropped to my knees over another yellow-green flower when it called out behind me. I spun around. 2 children. Tiny ones. Round ears, little tails. Mouse kids. The smaller hiding behind the bigger. The one in front, brown-haired, maybe a meter tall, red in the face, holding a little shovel like a weapon, voice shaking the whole time. "I found that root first. I only went home to get my shovel. You can't steal it." The system gave me their names. Xiao Bingan, little cookie. Xiao Dangao, little cake. Both 11. Both looking at me like I was the worst thing that had ever happened to them. Here's the thing. That root was a small fortune, and I don't hand fortunes to strangers just because they're small and loud. I told the kid, "Try me. Tell me what you'll do about it." She burst into tears. Both of them did, dropped right to the ground sobbing. And through the wailing, the words came out. "Please don't dig it up. It's the medicine for my mom. My mom is dying. I was going to make her soup." That stopped me cold. I got the story out of them, piece by frightened piece. No father. A baby sibling, still nursing. A sick mother. They'd fled here from somewhere far off, a place they called Mouse Potato City, after it was overrun. Refugees. Ingluo had never heard of any mouse settlement nearby. The nearest neighbors of any kind were a day and a half away. These 3 had crawled out of a war and ended up squatting at the absolute bottom of the world. I gave them the route, told them I wanted to see where they lived first, and if they were lying, I'd make them regret it. They weren't. The mother was exactly as advertised, a frail mouse woman named Baigua, 24, half dead on a bed of grass, a swaddled infant against her chest. When we ducked into their burrow, a hole so small I nearly didn't fit, she scrambled up in terror, certain we'd come to rob her. They owned almost nothing. They'd survived the journey because every night this dying woman had hauled 3 babies up into the trees to hide from the things that hunt in the dark. Walking by day, hiding by night, for over a month. I had Ingluo wait outside at first and told her, "If I don't come back out, run home and bring joie." But there was no trap, just hunger. It got dark before we could leave, so we stayed the night. For dinner, I opened a couple of cans from my stockpile, venison, the smell of it filling that little burrow. Ingluo grabbed hers, ready to dig in. Then a stomach growled. Loud. The two kids were staring at the food in her hands. Just staring. Bagua yanked them into her arms, apologizing, telling them not to bother the guests. And little Cake, the silent one, finally spoke, crying, rubbing her eyes. Mama, I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Her big sister bit down on her lip and refused to cry, trying to be strong. The baby started wailing too. I watched Inglua's ears droop. The cans didn't smell so good to her anymore. She turned to me, small voice. Wang Yin, they're so pitiful. I asked her what she wanted to do about it. And here's the thing about my fox. She didn't tell me to hand over my food. It was her dinner. She put her can down, clenched her little fists, and asked me, carefully, if she could give her own meal to them. I told her she didn't need my permission. She could do whatever she wanted. Her eyes lit up like a lamp had come on inside her. And then, without thinking about it at all, she leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, which left me sitting there a little stunned. She handed her food to Bagua. Take it. It's almost night. Don't go back outside. Bagua tried to refuse, pushed it back, insisted they had plenty, all lies. She'd been too sick to forage for ages. The whole family lived off whatever scraps two children could find, and the baby was so starved it had stopped having the strength to cry. I'll be honest about my part in this. I wasn't moved to charity. I have a farm. Food is the one thing I'll never run out of. Handing some to a starving family costs me nothing and buys me a clean conscience. A fair trade in anyone's book. But it was different watching Ingluo. She didn't have a magic farm. She had one dinner, gave it away, and then told me cheerfully that going hungry one night was nothing, that they'd skipped plenty of meals before I showed up. And somewhere in there I realized I liked this silly, kind-hearted fox more than was probably wise. Dummy, I said. You gave them your dinner. What are you going to eat? She just scratched her head and grinned. So I reached into storage and started pulling things out. More cans. Bread. A bottle of milk, set down on the dirt floor. Take it. Bagua looked at the food, the milk especially, something she'd clearly never seen, and the tears finally broke. She stopped refusing. She just gathered her children and started bowing, over and over, foreheads to the ground. That night the kids ate full for the first time since they'd fled. We warmed the milk for the baby. Little Cookie tucked the leftovers into a corner and wrapped the ginseng root in a scrap of cloth. She'd seen the rich men back in Mouse Potato City drink soup made from it, and she was sure it would make her mother well. Before Ingluo and I left at dawn, I set down nearly 100 kilos of potatoes by the mouth of their burrow. One day's harvest for me. 3 months of survival for them. I told myself it wasn't charity. I just didn't want Ingluo to be sad. We ran the whole way home and still got there to find the household awake and worried, Zhuohua about to walk out to search for us. She didn't scold. She just reached up, touched both our heads. Good. You're back. When I explained, refugees, a war, a fallen city, she went quiet and thoughtful. A mouse mother alone with 3 starving children pulled at something in her. We'd go visit properly in a few days, she decided. I understood why later. But first, 2 nights changed how I saw this place. The first was the monsters getting worse. I was up late again. Ingluo had developed a habit of climbing all over me to kiss me every single night, which makes sleep difficult, so I was out by the fire with Yoli when the rot smell hit. Far stronger than before. A hand came over the cliff edge. Pale as a corpse, mottled like a body left too long. Fingers digging into the rock until it cracked. And up climbed a giant, 2.5 meters of it, a hunched skeleton wrapped in dead white skin, gray hair matted in clumps, that same dog-skulled face, lips pushed out around crooked fangs. 2 of the smaller ones came up beside it. Yuli went out to meet it like a bolt of dark green lightning. With the iron spear I'd given her, she finally had what she'd been missing, a real weapon for real skill. A few thrusts and the 3 things were full of holes. One long kick sent them all back into the abyss. You can't let the bodies rot up here. Their blood is poison, and a corpse left overnight breeds a cloud of it by morning. I came out after, took her hands before she could stop me. Still shaking, just slightly. That wasn't the first one of these, was it? A small from the back of her throat. Then, quietly, 3 nights ago, the night beasts had been getting fiercer, harder to handle. For 3 nights. Why didn't you tell anyone? I can handle it myself. That was the whole problem with her, in 5 words. Something had been escalating for days, the kind of thing you tell your family immediately, and she'd swallowed it whole and said nothing. If I hadn't wandered out for air, I don't know how long she'd have carried it alone. So I said the thing I thought she needed to hear. That I knew she didn't talk much, that her edges were cold, but that I also knew she was a deeply good person, and that good people don't hide their wounds and tough things out alone. We're a family. We face things together. She pressed her lips together. Didn't answer. Just nodded, very slightly. Her number ticked up. I didn't expect the lesson to land all at once. I just wanted her to remember it. The next morning, Joahua and I set out to visit the mouse family. And on the walk, I finally asked the question that had been sitting in me. Why does Yuli push herself so hard? Joahua was quiet a while. Then she told me her own story, because I couldn't understand Yuli's without it. She'd come from up above, a kingdom of her own kind, salamander folk, called the Azalea dynasty. Something she wouldn't name had forced her out, set her wandering. Along the way she'd come across a slave caravan, the kind that sold beastfolk to humans for ugly purposes. Inside a cage, 3 small ones huddled together, shaking. Ingluo, Ziji, Huiwe, I killed people, she said, plainly, like she was describing the weather. And I pulled the 3 of them out of that cage. She'd meant to find them homes. But who adopts a beast child for nothing? So she gave up trying, hardened her heart, and kept all 3. Took them somewhere remote and raised them in hiding. A hard life, but a safe one, where they could grow up healthy. That was enough. That was when I understood Ingluo's instinct toward the mouse family. The kindness had been taught. We lived like that a few years, Joahua went on. And then one day, in a cave, we found Yuli. The first time Yuli saw her, she went berserk, flung herself at Joahua, biting and clawing like a cornered animal. Joahua slipped past her and found, deep in the cave, the half-rotted body of a woman, and understood all at once. After that, she kept coming back with food. And every time, Yuli tore her up, bit chunks out of her. It didn't matter. Joahua is a salamander. A good sleep and she heals. 1-2 months of that, and she finally calmed the furious little thing down enough to lead her out of the cave for the first time. The dead woman was her mother, Joahua said. She'd been alone with the body. The shock of it, that's why she attacked. And ever since she came to us, she's been silent. Carrying guilt. Always trying to make something up to us. But there's no debt between family, she told me. She'd tried everything to make Yuli understand that. In the end, with the girl watching, Joahua had severed her own tail, held up the still twisting piece, and said, "See? This is nothing to me." The girl just cried harder. I listened to all of it, and felt something heavy settle in my chest, because I finally understood the weight under Yuli's silence. It wasn't only guilt. It was the careful, clumsy guarding of someone who'd already lost her real family once, and was terrified of doing anything that might cost her this one. Like a child in a household she's been adopted into. No matter how kindly everyone treats her, she still feels, somewhere, that the others are the real family, and she's the guest. So she walks on eggshells, asks for nothing. And when something goes wrong, she grits her teeth and carries it alone. I'll do what I can for her, I told Joahua. Bottling everything up just makes the people who love her worry. That's no good. We reached the mouse burrow around mid-morning. The 2 kids were lying in the dirt outside, and the second they saw me they leapt up cheering. It's the food big brother. He came back. A few good meals in. They'd already filled out a little. They threw their muddy little arms around my legs, which did my pants no favors. They'd been outside, they informed me solemnly, watching the ants move house, and had completely forgotten they were supposed to be gathering greens. Baigwa crawled out and dropped straight to her knees when she saw me. Her number had hit 100. Real gratitude, not performance. That 100 kilos of potatoes meant her family could survive the 3 months of winter. I'd pulled her back from the edge of giving up entirely. I told her the food had been Ingluo's idea. Go thank her. On my own, I'd never have spared them a glance. Then I left 5 more cans, told her she could crack them open with a rock if the food ran out. That sealed they'd keep for decades. And I stepped aside to show her Joahua. She's the one who leads our village. Talk to her. Baigwa had a gift, it turned out. She tore a patch off the hem of her dress, and something gold rolled out. A small pocket watch, sized for a mouse, gilded, with a tiny turning dial and a faded photograph inside. Her grandfather had been a mouse knight, awarded it by their king for valor in some old campaign. It had passed down to her, and now she pressed it on me, the only thing of value she owned. 2 interesting things about that watch. It meant that somewhere in this world there was machining precise enough to build it, and photography to fill it. I pocketed it. Then Joahua took over the questioning, and watching her work, I understood why she leads. Her questions were a class above mine. What she pulled out of Baigwa was this: the fall of Mouse Potato City wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was the opening move of a war, an Ironstone kingdom, and some unnamed power sweeping through. Refugees like Baigwa wouldn't be the last. We'd need to be careful on the trails from now on. She gave Baigwa our directions. Follow the cliff east, come to us if you're in trouble, and we headed home. And on the way back, the rain came. Then the storm. We scrambled for the only shelter in sight, a cave mouth set high in the cliff face, and hauled ourselves up out of the downpour. The cave was bare, empty, nothing to burn, but soaked through. We needed a fire badly. Then a cold draft moved across me, and my skin prickled. Why is there wind? Wind meant the cave kept going. Meant space, somewhere deep. Shuohua caught my meaning at the same moment. With Yuli's night vision riding in my borrowed senses, the dark was no obstacle. I took Shuohua's hand, and we went in. The deeper we went, the warmer it got. That made no sense, and then I rounded the last bend and saw a light glowing off the rock at the cave's end. What opened up in front of me stopped my breath. It was a hidden world, a natural cavern the size of several thousand square meters, and at its center, a pool of clear emerald water. Glowing vines crawled up every wall. Luminous berries hung from the ceiling like lanterns. An entire ecosystem, sealed away and lit bright as daylight by its own glowing plants and minerals. Zhuohua, come look at this. Even she, who'd seen the upper world, stood there shaken. I knew the instant I saw it. This was what I'd been hunting for, a place no night beast could ever reach. We were moving the whole family here. We swept the place carefully, side by side. Nothing lived inside but a few field mice and rabbits. Soft, rich soil underfoot, centuries of dead leaves built into deep black earth. We could even farm a corner of it. When Zhuohua asked where everyone would live in a space this big, I spent 2 points, conjured 2 red bricks into my hand, and held them up. With these. She laughed. My, is there nothing you can't do? We couldn't make it home that night, so we dried our clothes by a fire and slept under the cotton quilt. There was one more strange thing about that cavern, though. The air inside was warm, too warm for the dead of autumn. I crouched at the edge of that emerald pool and touched the water. Zhuohua, the water's warm. She came over, frowned, thought a moment, then said, wait up here. I'll go down and look. I didn't love that. Warm water meant something strange below it, and I didn't like the idea of her diving alone into the dark. But she just patted her chest, confident. The water was half her home ground, and after her bloodline had advanced to its second tier, she said, anything down there she could handle. She slid out of her clothes, and a pink shape knifed into the pool. I waited 10 minutes on the bank, pacing, ready to go in after her. Then the surface broke and she came up gasping, and when I grabbed her arm to pull her out, I yelped. Her skin was scalding. The water down there, it's boiling, she panted. Hotter the deeper you go. I dove almost 200 meters and still couldn't see the bottom. No telling what's down there. So somewhere far below that pool was a heat source, cooking the water, warming the whole cavern, feeding all that glowing growth. A natural furnace. The shallows were safe. Nothing had come for her down there, which meant we could live here without fear. I wrapped her in her clothes and carried her to the fire, and we agreed. Tomorrow we tell the others, and we move before winter. In the morning we ran home. The household hadn't worried much about us being out at night, because the real strongest fighter in the house wasn't Yoli. It was Zhuohua. You don't shepherd children all the way to the bottom of the world without being able to handle yourself. I told them straight, we're moving. Stop foraging, spend the next few days packing. As for hauling it all, my storage held up to a ton. One trip would do it. Huiwa flicked her black tail. It's not the moving I'm worried about. It's the woman with the wings. What do we do about her? Right. Dilia, the sky elf I'd fished out of the dirt a month ago, who'd promptly fallen into a coma and never climbed out. Her wounds had long since healed. She just lay there, pale, breathing, refusing to wake. And now she was a body I'd have to haul to a new home. We were moving. She was not going to sleep through it. Zhuohua had an idea. She leaned in and whispered something, and my eyes went wide. You're serious? We're really doing that? She gave me a wicked little wink. These sky elf types are no good anyway. Worst case, she stays asleep and you get a little something out of it. Why not try? I did not take Zhuohua's advice. Whatever ugly thing she was suggesting, doing it to a comatose woman felt wrong. And besides, I remembered what she'd told me about these elves. They don't fight with bows and magic. They've got something far worse. So I went with the soap opera method instead. Talk to the patient, the shows always say. Stimulate her. I leaned down to Delia's ear and murmured, very softly, if you keep sleeping, your noble body is going to get defiled by exactly the kind of low-born people you look down on. She woke like she'd clawed out of a nightmare. Gold eyes flying open, wings snapping up around herself, a scream tearing out of her. No. I stood there rubbing my ear. I'd figured the line might work. I hadn't expected that. She huddled in the corner of the bed, focusing slowly, memory flooding back. Then she looked around. Cave, grass mat, animal hides. And her whole face went dark. I spent my entire coma here? Yep, I said, spreading my hands. And the soup you drank was the cheapest, most unseasoned broth we had. And every night you slept squeezed in with us low-born folk. She bolted up, stumbled 2 steps on legs that hadn't worked in a month, dropped to the cliff edge, and threw up. The sheer princess fragility of it was almost funny. When she'd finished heaving, she nearly pitched off the cliff standing back up. I caught her arm before she fell. She shoved me off the moment she was steady, smoothed herself out, and turned to us with all her cold dignity reassembled. My apologies. That was unseemly. I remember now. I have not forgotten the matter of your reward. I told her to skip the speeches. Where was it? Her eyes drifted away from mine. Clearly a new experience, having to look up at anyone. The payment requires 2 days. My servant will bring it. Joao leaned to my ear and explained, these elves don't do anything for themselves. Their whole lives are run by their iron machines. Cut off from them, they can't function. Delia was probably calling one down right now, and it would take 2 days to arrive. We agreed to wait, and I held off the move 2 days to get this particular headache out of the house first. Those 2 days were quiet. Delia wouldn't eat our food, couldn't, after the broth incident, and wouldn't sleep in the cave, just curled in the courtyard with her wings wrapped around herself like everyone was out to get her. I stopped offering. Not hungry enough yet. Starve if you want to. But she was out there in the courtyard the night I sat up with Yuli again. Which means she heard all of it. Because Yuli still hadn't told the others about the worsening night beasts, and I wanted it to come from her. So I sat with her by the fire, this cold-edged girl with her green braid and scaled cheeks and slit eyes, who, when she pressed her lips together like that, looked anything but fearsome. Why won't you tell them? I can still handle it myself. And when it's 3, 4, 5, are you still going to tough it out alone? A long silence. Then, forced out through the gap in her teeth, I'll solve every problem. I'll keep everyone safe. It made my chest ache, watching her guard everyone in the only way she knew how. Yoli, suppose you push yourself too hard, alone, and you get hurt. Who do you think would be the most heartbroken? Her head dropped. She said nothing. Joao told me about you. I understand you. You're a good girl, just a little closed off. Would it be so bad to talk to everyone a little more? If you stay a sealed bottle, you just end up passing your worst feelings on to the people who love you. Those beautiful slit eyes trembled, and her voice shook. I'm selfish. I'm difficult. Aren't I? I know everyone's good to me, but I just can't let myself accept it. Not after what I did to Joao. And I moved closer and put an arm around her shoulders. Not at all. You're a wonderful girl. Just shy. I told you, I understand. You take everyone's kindness so seriously that you'd rather carry every burden yourself than risk owing them. But I think you've got it backwards. A family isn't everyone minding their own corner, staying out of each other's way. It's helping each other, getting through the hard things together. So tomorrow, tell your sisters what's been happening. Can you do that for me? She lifted her head, eyes shining, and the words helping each other, getting through the hard things together sank somewhere deep. For the first time, she understood what family really meant. She nodded, hard. Her number jumped 25. What I forgot was the person in the courtyard. Delia heard every word. Gold hair burrowed deeper into her wings, and nobody knew what she was thinking. The next morning, Yuli took a breath and told them. Joao already knew. I'd asked her to let it come from Yuli's own mouth, and she smiled, watching the change in the girl who was finally, haltingly, learning to lean on someone. I understand, Joao said, and hugged her. Good girl. You've worked so hard. You're off night watch for now. I'll take your shifts. Yuli's eyes went wide. She tried to refuse, of course, but Joao just patted her head. We're moving in days, she reminded her. At the new home, there's no night watch. Gigi backed her up, ears fanning. Huiwa chimed in with just a sliver of reproach. Something this big, and you didn't tell us. Real nice. Ingluo took Yoli's hand and told her, gently, to rest. You've done so well. Everyone. Yoli's voice cracked. The cold green of her eyes rimmed faintly red. That was a family. We waited out one more quiet day, because the third day was the day Dilia's ride was coming. And I was honestly curious how she'd even called for it. From everything the others let slip, the wall ran deeper than the diameter of Earth. Whatever signaled across that distance was something I wanted to see. At noon, while I was hauling a bucket of water over to cook with Huiwa, a thing like a falling star came screaming straight down out of the sky. Oh! I grabbed Huiwa and covered her head. The boom rolled through the courtyard, dust everywhere. When it cleared, the center of the yard was a crater webbed with cracks, the woodpile and water jar smashed, and a silver-white figure was slowly straightening up out of it. Humanoid, armored head to foot in silver-white, gold filigree glowing cold along its frame, a diamond visor over the eyes, a heavy mechanical greatsword in one hand, silver hair streaming in the wind. A cybernetic Valkyrie dropped from the clouds. A flat, mechanical woman's voice. Beep. Dominator's target location reached. Cleansing mode, disengaged. Beginning search and rescue. Dilia popped up from her corner and waved it over. Here. The visor scanned her in an instant. Dominator located. Rescue complete. Scan detects 15 latent injuries, with severe malnutrition and exhaustion. Has the Dominator been mistreated? My stomach clenched. Don't you dare, lady. Don't you dare say we abused you and call down hell on us. But she only shook her head. The machine fell in behind her. And that was the real Dilia, the one with iron at her back. Even gaunt from 2 days of refusing food, she folded her hands and stood there serene as a queen. Salamander, I believe I can pay my debt now. She unclipped the machine's belt and held it out. A military shield belt. For low-born fighters with nothing but cold steel, the energy inside will last you a lifetime. Shuohua nodded at me. I stepped up and shook my head. We don't really need that. Then I raised a finger and pointed past her at the machine itself. Can we have one of those? Dilia frowned, not at the size of the ask, but at the strangeness of it. To her, these things were nothing. The Sky Capital made them by the score. A million is the core technology of the Sky Capital. To a human, even if I gave you one, you'd hold an empty shell? Oh. She stopped, her whole face lit with sudden understanding. A million also comes in a companion model. I see now. I didn't follow what she thought she'd understood, but I had a very bad feeling about it. I will need to return to the Sky Capital and deploy one here. Roughly 30 days. This one, you may keep for now. A flick of her wrist, and the belt dropped into my hands. Generous, she'd given us both the belt and a machine, which squared oddly with the genocidal monsters Zhuohua had described. That will be all, lowborn. Perhaps we'll never meet again. Thank you for the rescue. And with that she shot into the sky alongside the silver Valkyrie and vanished above the sea of clouds. No backward glance, no real goodbye. As if these few days had been nothing but a scrap of useless cache data in a very long life, finally cleared. Well, she is a noble sky elf, after all. And me? I was standing in a courtyard with a crater in it, a Sky Capital war machine on its way to my door, and a power sitting and used in my head that let me seize control of exactly that kind of machine within 5,000 meters. 30 days. I could wait 30 days. Moving day took less than an afternoon. My storage swallowed the whole household in one trip, and since the machine's crash landing had already wrecked half the old courtyard, there wasn't much left to pack. We took one last look at the ledge that had kept them alive and walked out of it for good. The new place changed everything. Warm as spring, lit like daytime, walled off from the dark by a mile of solid rock. No more night watch. No more freezing. For the first time, the girls had a home that didn't try to kill them every night, which freed me to run the numbers. I'd switched the farm over from potatoes to cotton, slower to grow, but worth more, and now I was pulling 300 points every 2 days. Enough to start building. I spent a fortune in bricks and cement and a construction skill capsule I'd gambled out of the gacha, and put up a plain matchbox of a house, 10 meters by 8, one door, a few windows, a single wide sleeping platform for 6. Crude, but theirs. By the time it was done, I'd burned through more than 10,000 points and my balance was a smoking crater. Being broke in a fantasy world is its own special misery. Autumn had a month left, and 2 jobs waited. Joao needed to go sit at the old home and wait for the merchant, a trader who came through once a year, just before winter, never on a fixed day. And we were low on meat. With Yuli freed from night watch, I could finally take her hunting. Their hunting method was simple to the point of cowardice. Find prey something else is already killing, wait for the other predator to do the work, then dart in and steal the kill. So Yoli and I lay in the frozen brush watching a sick old bison drink at the water's edge, an animal too weak to keep up with its herd, exactly the kind that gets picked off. No other beasts around, I whispered. Wait, she said. Winter's coming. The big predators are gorging before they den up. Trust me, something will come. Something came. The bison spooked first, some prey instinct firing before either of us saw anything. Then a snarl rolled across the snow, and a shape dropped off the cliff above us. 4 meters long, 2 meters tall. Something between a tiger and a wolf, gray-white fur with an oily sheen, front half massive and overbuilt, back half thin and trailing. Wrong looking. Powerful. Yuli went rigid. Don't move. That's a ravager. It's strong. I can't beat it. I asked her, quietly, what a ravager was. Apex predator. Every one of them has some special ability. They do not belong this far down. She was right, and that was the disturbing part. Higher up the wall, the ecosystems are richer, the ledge is wider. That's where an apex hunter chooses to live. For one to turn up in our barren scrubland made no sense at all. We watched it open the bison up like it was unwrapping a parcel, snapping ribs with one swipe. I unclipped the elf's shield belt from my waist and pushed it at Yoli. Put this on. If we can't run, this keeps you alive. She refused. You're weaker than me. Keep it yourself. I didn't have time to argue, so I just climbed on top of her and strapped it on by force, which turned her ears scarlet and her voice to outrage. But I had Joao's clotting and a few other passives skimmed off the household. Short of losing a limb, I'd survive a wound she wouldn't. The belt went to her. Then the wind shifted. Of course it did. Right across us, straight to the ravager's nose. It caught our scent, flattened down, lips peeling back. No more hiding. I pulled a borrowed iron axe out of storage. We back away slow. If it comes, we fight. Get ready. Here's the thing about facing a big predator. You stand tall, raise your arms, make yourself huge, look like more trouble than you're worth, and retreat. It works, unless you happen to be on the menu. And to these things, human flesh isn't just food. It's a delicacy. The ravager weighed unknown against appetite, and appetite won. It came like a launched arrow. Screw it, I snarled. Let's go. It was high noon. Sun's blessing, the agility passive, the regeneration. In daylight, with all of it stacked, I wasn't the easy meal it expected. The giant paw came down like a hydraulic press, and I slipped it at an ugly angle, took 3 deep gashes across my chest instead of getting flattened. The clotting sealed them in seconds. I rolled clear, buried the axe in its shoulder, and backed off before greed could get me killed. Yuli, I'm fine. Don't panic. She did not hear a word of it. She'd seen the claws open my chest, and she went berserk, flung herself at the thing's throat, spear leading. The ravager swung to crush her, and she didn't even dodge. She just thrust. The blow stopped half a meter from her face. A thin amber shield flared, the belt, holding. The spear punched clean through its neck, and she dropped to one knee, wrenched the whole shaft sideways, and tore it free. After that we had a rhythm. One of us couldn't be hurt and only attacked. The other healed and only ran, both of us carving at the awkward angles. Even a monster that size couldn't handle it, though Yuli kept stabbing for the eyes, like she wanted to scramble its brain out of its skull. I knew the shield wouldn't last forever, so I needed to end it. Backing toward the cliff edge, my eye caught the boulders there, and the plan landed. My storage releases its contents within a meter of me, on command, which makes it a weapon. I scooped several huge rocks into the load and charged back in, took a couple more chlorakes for my trouble, bleeding all over the snow, and Yuli finally broke and cried. Wang Yen, run. I'm begging you. No time to explain. I dodged a swipe, climbed straight up the thing's bloody foreleg onto its back. It threw itself at the cliff wall to scrape me off, and I raised my hand and dropped a boulder out of thin air, point blank, onto the back of its neck. It mashed the giant skull into the ground. The neck was already a ruin where Yoli's spear had been. I lifted the axe and brought it down like splitting firewood. The head came off. The body thrashed, claws shredding trees and rock, a fountain of blood, and then it stopped. Dead. I dropped to my knees, shaking, every nerve unclenching at once. And Yuli slammed into me, golden eyes streaming, sobbing into my chest. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you. Please don't die. I went still, then started to laugh and pulled her in. I'm not the one who died. It is. Look, I'm not even hurt. I took her shaking hand and pressed it flat to my bloody, already healed chest. See? She stared like she'd witnessed a miracle. But I saw. Think about it. Doesn't this remind you of someone at home? It clicked. Zhuohua, right? I'm human, but I've got bits of all of you. Inglua's sun power, your night vision, Huayue's speed. I've got them. Should have told you sooner. Sorry I scared you. I wiped my hand and reached to dry her tears, and only managed to smear a red streak across her cheek, which made her look ridiculous and adorable. She called me a heartless jerk, then threw both arms around me and refused to let go. Her affinity number was climbing fast enough to make me dizzy. The bridge effect, maybe, adrenaline misfiling itself as something warmer. Either way, she clung until she nearly squeezed the air out of me. The bison was mostly eaten, but the Ravager itself went into storage, 600 kilos of it. When we got home and I dumped the headless carcass in the courtyard, the girls flinched. Zhuohua circled it twice. A white-armed tiger. A vicious one. So even these are coming down now. Her face went grave. If something as serious as this had been pushed off its territory, then something far worse had moved into it. She didn't know what. Neither did I. But she made the call. Stockpile food fast, wall up for winter, and let whatever was happening out there stay out there. The girls butchered the tiger clean. 300 kilos of meat, plus bone, hide, organs. My storage didn't pause time or keep things fresh, so it all had to be processed. No sunlight in the cave for drying. Salt too precious to waste on curing at scale, so I built a smoking rack and hung 250 kilos to cure, keeping 50 back to cook. And cook I did, dreading it the whole time. Apex predator meat is supposed to taste foul, all the accumulated toxins of the food chain souring the flesh. Junior high biology, basically. So I blanched it, hit it with strong aromatics, drowned it in broth with soy sauce and wild greens, and braced for the worst. It was delicious. Tender, beefy, not gamey at all. The whole household fell on it. When I asked Zhuohua why, she smiled over her bowl. Ravagers and humans are natural enemies. Same with Beastfolk. Our flesh is irresistible to them. And the reverse holds. A good Ravager steak fetches a fortune even up top. She took a bite. Notice how warm your body feels. It strengthens the constitution, too. So Apex meat was delicious and a tonic. I filed that away, along with the dangerous little thought that maybe I should be hunting these things, the monsters everyone else runs screaming from. The next few days settled into routine, except hunting now meant Zhuohua and Yuli together, leaving me to build with the girls. And one afternoon, mid-foundation digging, Zhuohua jogged up. Wang Yin, the merchant's here. Come meet her. I'd half forgotten winter was nearly on us. I dusted off and walked out. And there, parked against the cliff edge, was a cloud whale. 30 meters of blue-green gradient, fins broad as wings, a wooden platform lashed to its back, with an entire warehouse built on top, like a floating fortress. A girl hopped down off it. Maybe 1.50 meters, water blue twin tails, tiny tinted shades perched on her nose, a gaudy gold chain around her neck, a black and green robe in some fabric I couldn't name, but could tell was expensive. She radiated shrewd merchant from 10 paces. The system logged her. Lingdang. Human, 26, talent, insight. And logging her handed me a new passive, perfect memory, which felt like someone wiping the dust off a library I didn't know I had. Things I'd glanced at on Earth and forgotten came flooding back, sharp and usable, half-watched how-to videos, pages of books, knowledge I'd never meant to learn. And it deepened my mental reserves on top of it. Better still, logging the first human unlocked new store goods, and one of them lit me up. A loom. 5,000 points. Exactly what I needed to turn my mountain of cotton thread into endless cloth. Lingdang already knew Zhuohua, and she knew exactly what a salamander's status meant on the wall. What surprised her was me, a man walking out of the cave with the unmistakable air of the one in charge. That was worth noting. Also worth noting, The man was grinning at her like an idiot, which docked me 5 affinity on sight and made her wonder if I was a creep. Shuohua headed that off smoothly and lied with the truth. He's a lost traveler. I liked his looks, so I caught him to breed with and kept him. The breeding part was real. The rest was cover, because Ling Dang was a traveling merchant, and a man who conjures food from nothing is precisely the kind of information that gets packaged and sold. Better she think me a kept stud than a miracle. Ling Dang bought it, looked faintly disgusted, and got down to business. She appraised the baskets and dried fruit at a glance. Call it a clean 1,000 silver, a fair price. She was a sharp dealer, but never a cheat. We climbed onto the whale's back to shop, and even after a lifetime of Earth supermarkets, the warehouse impressed me. Medieval-style wooden shelves crammed with food, tools, crafts. Normally Zhuohua spent everything on potatoes. This year she drifted to my side instead and let me choose. Coarse salt, 2 spindles, a wood plane, odds and ends. Gigi grabbed a packet of cookies. No bulk grain at all, which Ling Dang noticed. Zhuohua had her story ready. I broke through to my 2nd meridian tier recently, and we took down a Ravager, so meat's no problem. Figured I'd trade for tools and treats instead. Ling Dong's eyes narrowed at the plane and spindles, but she only smiled. Congratulations. 2 clever women, each reading the other, neither tipping her hand. She tallied it, 954 silver, 46 and change. And Zhuohua stopped her. One more thing I want to buy. Her rose-pink eyes glinted. Information. The night beast growing stronger. The Ravagers coming down. How much? Ling Dang grinned like she'd been waiting for it. You came to the right person. But I should warn you. Those are 2 separate matters. 2 prices. A sly pause. 8,000 silver. Each. A robber's price. And she had us. Zhuohua had nowhere else to ask. I tugged her sleeve and pressed something round and hard into her palm. The Mouse Knight's pocket watch. She caught my meaning instantly. I've got something here. Tell me what it's worth. Ling Dong's eyes went wide when she saw the little gilt watch. She turned it over, appraising. Zhuohua smiled. A gift from the Rat King's court to a Mouse Knight. You know what that means. But Ling Dang frowned. These royal pieces usually have the king's portrait inside. This one's empty. I'd quietly peeled the photograph out before handing it over. Figured it might be useful with other mice someday. Zhuohua covered without missing a beat. A refugee from Mouse Potato City had given it in thanks. It was already empty when they got it. The fall of that city was common knowledge, the story held. Tell you what, Ling Dang said. Mouse craftsmanship, definitely. But with no portrait, hard to prove it's royal. Call it 2,000 silver. That covers both pieces of information. Nobody loses. Deal. Zhuohua sighed and took it. And Ling Dang gave us what we'd paid for. The night beasts are simple. There's a new outfit working the lower wall, calls itself the Withered Wood Church. Looks more like a death cult to me. Somehow they can steer the beasts, herd them, and it's thrown the whole mid-low wall into chaos. They sacrifice live people, last I heard. And the fall of Mouse Potato City? Their handiwork too. So your night beasts haven't really changed. The whole region's boiling over, and that cult is the cause. The top-tier lords have noticed. My bet is they wipe the church out before long, and things settle back to normal. Just keep your heads down. Then the Ravagers, and her voice dropped. This one you couldn't get from anyone else, because it's only happening in your little corner of the wall. Somewhere a fair distance above you, something extremely powerful has arrived. No chaos, no announcement. I don't even know what it is. I only know the Ravagers nearby caught its scent and fled. Straight down to you. I stumbled onto it by accident. It's quiet now. I don't think it'll stay that way. A pocket watch for 2 answers. Both vague, both credible, both problems that, with luck, someone else would solve. Zhuohua relaxed a little. Understanding the threat meant you could hide from it. The girls came off the whale clutching their treasures, delighted. Ling Dang whistled. The whale boomed a foghorn note, drew in its fin, and slid back into the cloud sea like a ship into the ocean. And standing on its head, the wind tugging her hair, Ling Dang looked back toward the new home and thought about the salamander and her so-called stud. A stud, The corner of her mouth curled. I think I'll have to look into that. Back home, I laid it out. The night beasts were a side effect of a death cult. Bad luck, not our problem to fix. The Ravagers were the real worry. Something monstrous sitting above us, shoving apex predators down onto our doorstep, and no guarantee anyone would deal with it. I couldn't sleep with that thought pacing in my head. Zhuohua caught me frowning, looped her arm through mine, pressed a finger between my brows. Don't carry it alone. I don't like watching you brood. We figure things out together. Then she leaned in and murmured a suggestion of how I might clear my head, and led me out of the cave by the hand before I could answer, which left the girls behind, blinking. What are those two going off to do? Gigi wondered. Mating, Yuli said automatically, then froze as three heads swiveled toward her and hastily backpedaled into nonsense. Huiwa smirked. Probably some secret grown-up talk. He's always scheming about something. And Ingluo, turning the glass bead bracelet she'd bought, sighed. When am I ever going to have Wang Yan's baby? 3 blank stares. What? I brought him home so he'd give us children and grow the tribe. Why are you all looking at me like that? Here's where it gets important, and where I'll spare you the staging. These girls had been raised so isolated that Zhuohua had never actually explained how any of it worked. Ingluo genuinely believed sleeping next to someone was how babies happened, and couldn't fathom why nothing had come of it. Yoli, who, unlike her sisters, understood the mechanics, eventually pulled Ingluo aside and quietly set her straight. Ingluo went scarlet to the tips of her ears, but she'd made up her mind. She wanted a child. She wanted to grow this little family into something real, and she resolved to follow Yoli's advice the next time she got Wang Yin alone. With the merchant gone, winter closed in. I had a loom to save for, so I spent the lull spinning cotton and planing lumber while the girls worked thread. The cave stayed warm, food was plentiful, and it was, by their account, the happiest stretch of their lives. Then the snow came. The first flakes of winter dusted everything silver. And as I watched the sky, it darkened, a few seconds of dimness with no cause, then gone. Zhuohua had never seen the like. I chalked it up to an eclipse and put it out of my mind. We sealed the cave with a boulder and settled in to wait out the storm. I opened 2 more farm plots, 7 now, pushing my output to 420 points every 2 days. Slow, but a loom was 11 days off at that rate, and in a few more the month I'd promised Dilio would be up. I'd have to go back to the old home. That's where her machine would land. A few snowbound days later, Zhuohua stopped me on my way out, looking oddly nervous. She wanted to talk about the refugee mouse family. I cut her off before she could struggle through it. Funny you mention them. I was thinking the same thing. I rubbed my hands together, all transparent bravado. We're short-handed. Bring them here, feed them, put them to work. Can't have them freezing to death out there. That'd be a waste. You wouldn't object, right? She stared at me, and something warm broke across her face. She'd been agonizing over how to ask me to take on a sick woman and 3 children, pure dead weight by any cold accounting, because every good thing in their lives now came from me, and she couldn't bear to demand more. And I'd just handed her the answer before she had to ask. She saw exactly what I was doing. Permission granted, she said, hands on hips, mock reluctant. Be careful. Come back soon. I kissed her cheek and murmured, knew it. Best wife a guy could ask for. Her brain stopped. Nobody had ever called her wife. She clutched the front of her shirt, cheeks blooming pink, looking for all the world like a girl in the first throes of a crush, mouthing the word to herself in disbelief while I was already inside changing clothes. I bundled up in a gotcha-pulled set of winter gear and was about to leave when Wang Yin, Ingluo, bouncing, tail going, 2 pink fists clenched. You're bringing the mouse family back? I'm coming with you. It's freezing out there. Wait at home. Gigi sidled up, draping an arm she couldn't quite reach across Ingluo's shoulder. Take her. She's the most cold-resistant of all of us. You two can look out for each other. Cold-resistant? I thought about it. I'd need an extra pair of hands anyway. If the 2 kids couldn't walk, I could only carry one. Fine. But the second you feel cold, you tell me. Understand. We hauled the boulder aside and stepped out into a world gone blood and silver, the setting sun staining the snow orange. I'd lost all track of time underground. The walk to the burrow ran an hour before dark forced us into a cave for the night. I scraped together damp wood, coaxed a fire with cotton from storage and the army knife, and hung the white arm tiger's tanned hide across the entrance as a windbreak. Soon the little cave was warm, and Ingluo, who'd come along with more than helping in mind, sat by the fire turning red as a lychee, working up her nerve over what Yuli had taught her. I'll keep this brief, the way the brief asks me to. That night, something shifted between them, and I cut the scene. What matters is the morning after. Because the morning after, Ingluo woke up different. She nuzzled in for a hug, then frowned, trying to describe a strange new feeling. It's like, I'm burning up, not sick, like I'm about to catch fire. I didn't understand. Until she did. Her hair and tail ignited, pink-gray strands roaring up into living flame, heat rolling off her, melting the snow under her feet. My brain blue-screened. But she wasn't hurt, wasn't afraid, just humming with energy. She gathered the strange new power into her palm, and with a soft whump a ball of fire bloomed in her hand. I pulled up her status panel to confirm it. Talent, Fire Spirit. A new specialty, Flame Affinity. She'd awakened, and I went cold for a different reason. Because a month ago, after my first night with Zhuohua, she'd talked about a sudden breakthrough too, her bloodline jumping a tier overnight, something she'd called impossible. Once is coincidence, twice is a pattern. Did I actually have a hidden ability, the power to trigger an awakening in Beastfolk? I shoved the thought down. I need a third data point before I believed something that absurd. We ran some quick tests. Her burning hair gave off real heat, but never scorched her clothes. And when I reached into it, I felt nothing, like holding fire in my cupped hands. She could shape the flames, burst them, draw them into threads, all clumsy new but startlingly flexible. The only cost, after a while her body tired and her head ached faintly. Manageable. I left the rest for Zhuohua to puzzle out and pressed on. We reached the burrow at sunrise, and my stomach dropped. The boulder ceiling it didn't answer when I knocked. No sound at all. Baigua, are you in there? Nothing. I had Ingluo bake the stone with her new flames until it blackened, then shattered it with the back of the axe and crawled in. For bodies, curled together on the grass bed. Alive, barely. Baigua and little Cookie lay turned toward each other, shielding little Cake and the baby in the middle. The potatoes I'd left were a frozen brick in the corner, useless. Everyone but the infant had frostbite, some of it ulcerated. Another day, and they'd all have been gone. Ingluo clapped both hands over her mouth, shaking. Are they dead? No, not yet. Get firewood. Fast, they're all frostbitten. She had a blaze roaring in seconds. Frostbite runs 4 degrees. I checked them over. Only Baigua had the ulceration of 2nd degree, the kids just red and swollen. Treatable, if barely. I laid down padding, threw the tiger hide over them for warmth, and heated my last 2 cans of beef by the fire, feeding it to them mouthful by careful mouthful. And Ingluo became the fire itself, flame-woven hair spreading like a net over all of them, the cave warming to spring, a small sun holding back the cold. Baigua's eyelids cracked open onto a girl wreathed in flame and a dark blurred figure beside her, and one thought surfaced, we're alive. The kids woke crying. Frostbite itches as it thaws, and they were miserable, better miserable than silent. Baigua wept her thanks and swore her whole family would serve me like beasts of burden if I'd have them. I would. We were short-handed, and that was the whole reason I'd come. I told her, cold as I could manage, to prepare for a lifetime of it, and to hurry. We were leaving while the sun was up. The kids cheered. Old Master's a good man. He gave us food. Say yes. The 3 of them knelt in the snow and bowed. I rubbed my temples. I hate that part. But I waved it off and got them moving. Getting home took 6 hours. The frostbitten can't move fast. I carried both kids tucked into my coat like 2 cabbages. Baigua leaned on Ingluo with the baby. We made it back before nightfall, and when the warm air and drifting glow of the cavern hit them, the whole mouse family stood frozen, eyes huge. This is the master's home? This is heaven. Gigi nearly lost her mind with joy at the sight of fellow mice, circling Baigua, cooing at the sleeping baby, until the 2 kids peeked out of my coat. Hello, big sister, and she melted on the spot. So cute. She'd have hugged them through the floor if I hadn't caught her ear. Zhuohua took Baigua's hands. Welcome to the family. We're one household now. We look out for each other. Baigua dropped straight to her knees. I dare not be the master's family. We've no right. Let us just be your laborers, to repay the kindness. Zhuohua glanced at me. I shrugged. Not my doing. She'd insisted on ranking herself below everyone, though I had told her to prepare for a life of servitude. So, fair enough. Work hard. You eat. Slack off. You go. That was my whole philosophy, and I wasn't interested in policing who bowed to whom. That night, Huayue celebrated the new arrivals by stewing smoked Ravager meat into a great pot of potato soup, seasoned with salt and MSG. Nothing to us, a feast to them. Later, I found Zhuohua and described Yingluo's transformation. Her expression went strange, those rose eyes studying me. You were together? I felt like a husband caught red-handed. But she didn't look angry. Yeah, that night, Yingluo awakened right after. She thought a long moment. I'd only suspected. But it seems you really do have this ability to help Beastfolk awaken. Couldn't it be coincidence? She shook her head flatly. No, you don't understand how rare an awakening is. Most Beastfolk live and die without one, and forcing it takes extraordinary methods. And advancing a meridian tier the way I did, we need a specific rare pill, and even then, jumping a tier overnight has never happened. Until you. She met my eyes, mouth curving. I suspected before. Now I'm sure. What she left unsaid, now that she knew, she'd be quietly steering the rest of her sisters my way. An awakening is worth almost any price. I just sat there feeling cursed by my own cheap power, which had apparently handed me that kind of plot. Of course it had. Settled in, the household entered its easiest stretch yet. The kids' mild frostbite healed. Gigi adopted them as her own little gang. Baigua, recovering, took over cleaning and spinning and proved twice the worker Gigi was, which got me comparing the two and noticing Baigua's family were all tiny. The 11-year-olds barely a meter, Baigua herself only about 140, while Gigi at 150 towered over them. Different breed of mouse entirely, most likely. Finally, the points hit 5,000, and I bought the loom. I figured out the thing in one try. Lingdong's perfect memory had handed me all the textbook weaving knowledge I'd ever skimmed. And even if knowing how and doing it are different beasts, I didn't have to do it. Because the machine could. Right, the machine. That month had come due, so I went back to the old home with Yingluo to collect Dilia's payment. The Valkyrie arrived the way the first one had. A falling star, a crater webbed with cracks, paired now with the one from before. When the snow mist cleared, a figure uncurled from a white cocoon of light, silver hair, a skin-tight white bodysuit, faceplate seam lines down her cheeks, blindingly bright in the sun. No armor this time, no greatsword. Just this. Her amber eyes opened, rings of light focusing and dissolving down to twin pupils that locked onto me. Destination reached. Dominator identity confirmed. Wang Yen, human male. Companion model 0348. Deployment complete, binding complete. Something fell off, and I couldn't place it, until her eyes projected an image of Dilia into the air. Human, if you're seeing this, you've received your million. Per your request, I selected a companion model, with full female specialization, composite biomimetic materials, a one-to-one faithful reproduction of the Sky Elf form. I stood there processing that with mounting horror. I have also installed 34 positions of deep learning to meet your special needs. Since the lower wall is so primitive, I gave her a bioreactor stomach. She can recharge by eating. I've left basic programs running, so even if you can't control her, voice commands will handle simple tasks. That concludes the instructions. Human and salamander, my debt is paid. We're even. We won't meet again. Farewell. So, that's what Dilia's, oh, I see now had meant. She'd taken "Can I have one of those?" and concluded I wanted a bedroom appliance. I wanted the armored war Valkyrie. I got a courtesan bot. You understood nothing, I muttered. But the thing was delivered, and I wasn't about to send it back. Yingluo, clinging to my arm, watched it all with frank bafflement and decided, sensibly, that some things weren't worth understanding. The girl machine blinked, and when her eyes reopened, they held something almost human. Hello, master. Do you require service? I'd deal with the programming. What I needed was the passive machine control, copied off Dilia a month ago, and I had no idea how to switch it on. Then my eyes met the millions, and a very strange sensation flooded my skull. A five-fingered human can't imagine controlling a sixth finger or sensing a brand new organ. That's what this was. The instant our eyes locked, machine control bound her, and she became, in effect, an extension of me. Everything she saw, heard, and did flowing straight into my mind. Range unknown, but used right, easily the most broken thing I had. Better still, testing the controls, I found her developer mode unlocked. Dilia clearly never imagined I could actually seize the thing, and left me wide open access. Buried under the companion programming was a normal work mode. Building, weaving, processing raw materials. She could do all of it, tirelessly, No rest, just feed her now and then. One unit doing the work of five. Sky Capital core technology turned into the ultimate laborer. Back home, she drew a crowd. I explained her as a tool, a clever doll that does chores. Little Cookie tugged my pants. Master, what's the big sister's name? Doesn't she talk much? I thought about it, and a name surfaced. She's called Gabriel. Call her Little Gabe. The Million's Pupils World. Confirmed designation of Companion Model 0348 as Gabriel. Confirmed. And the line on my control panel rewrote itself from 0348 to Gabriel. Done. A laborer who never sleeps. The household's growth was about to accelerate. Gabriel scanned everyone's measurements with a glance and worked through the nights, turning white cotton cloth and hide into proper winter clothes, even forging the tiger pelt into a heavy, fearsome cloak. Coats for Yoli and Joahua came first, freeing the fighters to go out, so I figured I'd hunt while work was slow and stock up. But there were no ravagers. None. 2 full days, and not so much as a wild boar, just rabbits and the odd badger, the hunting trips turning into outings with my wives. Which baffled me. Hadn't the ravagers been driven down here? So where were they? I had a guess. Maybe that mysterious presence above us had been dealt with by someone strong, and the displaced predators had simply gone home. If so, a threat erased without my lifting a finger. Great news. But fast. Suspiciously fast. I never got long to enjoy it. With nothing larger to hunt, I cut the party down to just me and Gigi. Not to fight, but because her keen-eye talent made her the sharpest-sighted in the house. I'd badly underestimated it. The girl could spot a hidden cave 800 meters off, like a built-in scope. With my little treasure mouse pointing the way, I went from hunting to harvesting. Even the fiercest beast can't fight back mid-hibernation, and at high noon, stacked with all my passives, I once took a black bear in a single axe stroke without getting a drop of blood on me. 800 kilos of game later, I was thinking about selling meat. Down here, with no ravagers, I was untouchable. As the sun dropped and my daylight buff faded, Gigi found one last cave, small mouth, well hidden. There's a big one in there, I bet. And you owe me 3 cans of beef for today. I ruffled her head and agreed. 3 cans. Last grab bag of the day. The mouth was too narrow for anything large. We crept in, and there was something living deep inside, but not what either of us pictured. At the back, sprawled across a hoarded mound of nuts, lay a silver-white beast girl. Long silver hair. Scales, like Yoli's, but fewer, larger, diamond-shaped. From the look of her, I guessed another snake type, and assumed, like the mouse family, another freezing refugee. At 20, 30 below, anyone lying exposed in a cave that long should have been a corpse. But her stomach rose and fell, just barely. Still breathing. Savable. Short-handed as we were, I'd take anyone who wasn't outright dangerous. So, fire, warmth, broth, the whole Baigwa routine. It barely worked. She was iced to the touch, profoundly hypothermic, and I fed her warm soup a careful drop at a time. When the last spoonful went down with no change, I gave up. We'd come too late. I tried to pull up her status panel. No waste, maybe a new passive in it, and for the first time ever, it wouldn't open. Strange. I set her down, ready to take back the hide and find somewhere to bury her. Then Gigi shot up, pointing, finger trembling. She moved. Her eyelid moved. It's working. I pressed a thumb hard under her nose to stimulate her. It worked. Her silver brows knit, her eyelids fluttered. She's alive. Harder, Wang Yin. Her eyes opened. And they weren't eyes. They were a nebula, deep blue space scattered with infinite points of light, ringed and threaded with stars, all of it wheeling around one blazing central sun. I lost myself in them for a second before I shook it off. She lay in my arms, silver lashes sweeping, saying nothing, just staring. She reached up and pinched my cheek. I peeled her hand off and let go, and she simply toppled, made no move to right herself, glanced down at the hide wrapped around her, frowned faintly, and tore it apart like plastic film. Then rolled over and went back to staring at me. Gigi leaned in. Is she broken in the head? I didn't answer. I heated another can of beef and offered it. The scent finally pulled her gaze off me. She took it in both hands, obedient, and ate, head tipped back, pouring it in, broth running down her chin into that silver hair. As graceless as it's possible to be. Eats when hungry. Not a total vegetable, at least. She was awake now, So I tried the panel again. This time it answered. Furiana Villanola, Dragon. Age. Affinity. 0. Talent. Ancient Dragon Bloodline. Specialties. Endless Breath. Ancient Dragon True Body. Immaculate Scales. Dragonkin. Peerless Melee. Flawless Body. Cooking Incompetence. I stopped breathing. Dragon. A dragon, sleeping peacefully in a cave that I had walked up to and slapped awake by the nose. Every recent mystery snapped together into one line. The extremely powerful presence above us. The one who sent every ravager fleeing down onto our doorstep. She was it. Her arriving here was exactly why the displaced ravagers had suddenly vanished. They'd followed her back down. Strip away the human face, and I'd just done the equivalent of strolling into a tiger enclosure and double slapping the sleeping tiger to make it lie back down. The system unlocked her entry, a new passive, Dragonkin, multiplying my strength, defense, and regeneration several times over, but I barely registered the upgrade. Because Furiana finished her can, licked her lips, and fixed those star-filled eyes back on me, and my heart tried to stop. I dumped my last 500 points into beef cans and pushed the whole pile at her, backing away one careful step at a time, hauling Gigi with me. She tore into them, biting straight through the tin, broth spraying everywhere, utterly absorbed, paying us no mind. We inched to the cave mouth, and the second I was sure, I threw Gigi over my shoulder and ran. I have never run that fast. That thing emptied an entire ecosystem of apex predators with her scent alone. I had a very precise sense of how outmatched I was. The only plan was to get Gigi home and seal a cave for several months. Then a figure appeared at the edge of my vision. Gigi screamed it before I could focus. It's her. It's the woman. A shriek of split air, a silver blur, and Furiana slammed into the snow in front of us like a cannonball, the spray clearing to show her. Hair and neck still slick with broth, blocking the path. Done for. I set Gigi down, took a breath, and tried the only thing left, words. I'm deeply sorry for disturbing your rest. We thought you were a stranded refugee. We meant no offense. If you're still angry, I'll find a way to make it right. Please, let us go. No reaction. Just that head tilt, that blank, unreadable stare, which was somehow worse than fury. Elder, could you, say something? And she did. One syllable. Food. I blinked. What? She lifted one jade-pale finger, opened her mouth, and pointed inside it. She was asking me for food. You mean you want to eat? Food. Clear as day. The world's most terrifying creature wasn't here to kill me. She was here because the guy with the cans of beef had run off with dinner. Relief hit me so hard my knees went weak. Because a thing that wants something is a thing you can bargain with. Keep her fed, and maybe, just maybe, she won't eat me. The dragon would not let go of my leg. Let me back up. I'd just slapped an apex predator awake by the nose, discovered she was a dragon, the thing whose mere scent had emptied the region of every ravager, and learned her entire vocabulary was one word. Food. I was broke. I dumped my last points into beef cans and fed her every one. I tried to bargain other things. I hunted plenty today, look, but she wouldn't glance at the fresh kill. Just stared at me with those star-filled eyes until my skin crawled. I'm sorry, the cans are gone. I really don't have any. I backed away. She didn't follow. I grabbed Gigi's hand, took 2 more steps, told the thing I'd take her silence as permission to leave, and a weight latched onto my right leg and would not move. I looked down. The silver-haired dragon had wrapped both arms around my thigh, knelt in the snow, tipped her face up, and said it again. Food. Let go. Food. You let go first, okay? Food. Her grip was iron. I could not pry her off. So, since she clearly wasn't attacking, I had Gigi grab her ankles, and we carried the dragon home like a piece of furniture, arriving well after dark in the single most undignified procession of my life. Huiwa waved us in, then spotted the woman clamped to my leg and froze. Zhuohua took one look and went sharp. I told her everything, and as I talked, her face got graver. You're telling me she's a dragon. She really likes the cans I gave her. She's completely attached to me, but she doesn't seem aggressive. That part one can't promise. Zhuohua had heard of dragons. Seen one even. A humanoid one she couldn't quite process. She lifted a bowl of broth and offered it. And Furiana finally let go of me to grab it, draining it in messy gulps, soup running down her chin. It works. I nearly wept with relief, backing well clear. Zhuohua thought it over, then made the call. Keep her. I think we should. When I balked, she explained, dragons are something nobody provokes, even up top. But this one shows no aggression, can communicate at a basic level, and only wants to be fed. A creature that can be kept content with food, whose mere presence drives off every ravager for miles. That's not a liability. That's a guardian who cost me dinner. She was right. I'd pinched this thing's nose and interrupted her hibernation, and she hadn't so much as snapped at me. She'd clung to me because she was hungry. So I agreed. We'd keep her. By then, Furiana had drained the entire pot, belched, curled into a ball on the floor, and gone to sleep. I guess, I sighed. We'll just have to cook a lot more from now on. The dragon was unbelievably easy to keep. She outate the whole household at a sitting, but with food no longer a problem, it barely registered. I couldn't use her real name. Every time Furiana reached the tip of my tongue, the hair on my neck stood up, like saying it aloud would summon something terrible. So I called her Aliu. Short, easy, and not whatever cursed thing her true name was. Logging her unlocked a store item, a soul contract, 3,500 points, a master-servant bond for any low-intelligence creature weaker than me. A pokeball, basically. I knew exactly what I wanted to catch with it. Lingdon's cloud whale had stuck with me. I wanted a mount of my own, something to ride wherever I pleased. The cloud sea below us was thick with whale tails breaking the surface. Someday, I promised myself, I'd go down there and take one. And I could now. Logging Aliu had given me a passive, dragonkin, multiplying my strength, defense, and regeneration. My body had started changing. Harder lines, my black eyes drifting toward dark gold, the pupils threatening to turn to slits. With Dragonkin and Zhuohua's clotting stacked, I could probably go a second round with that white-armed tiger and leave it wondering who the monster was. Catching a small cloud whale was suddenly within reach, minus the small problem of how to move through a sea made of mist. A thought for later. Meanwhile, my 2 unlocked crops finally matured. The spirit sunflower paid 40 points a plot per day, better than cotton. But the sunfruit was a revelation, 7 days to grow, then 100 kilos a plot at 7 points a kilo. 700 points per harvest, 70 a day, nearly double the sunflower. And the fruit itself was potent, sweet, filling, edible raw, and fermented. It produced a clean, renewable fuel rivaling petroleum. I'd basically planted an oil field. I converted all 7 plots to sunfruit on the spot. Winter's coldest month arrived. In years past, the girls had survived it huddled in a shivering pile around a fire, gritting their teeth till it passed. Now they ate and slept and played, warm as spring. I sealed the cave and, bored, decided to build something. A real bathing pool, brick and cement, 3 meters square, heated by coals in a chamber underneath. Not because I wanted to bathe with the girls. Obviously, I'll leave the bath itself at the door. The relevant part, I cut that scene, the way I've been cutting them. What matters is everyone came out clean and happy, and afterward I sat by the fire combing out Yingluo's enormous, waterlogged tail while she pretended to be annoyed and was, very clearly not. The girls had never been so content, warm, fed, safe, the storm howling impotently outside. Then Zhuohua counted the days. 3 left, and winter would break. Which gave me an idea. Let's celebrate the new year. Nobody knew what that was, not even Zhuohua. Everyone gathers around a table, I told them, covered in good food, and we eat and talk and celebrate surviving another year. The most important day of the whole year. They lit up. I blew my remaining points opening 3 new farm plots, then spent a 30 pull on the celebration. 5 purples, a box of ibuprofen, a pack of hemostatic bandages, a heavy saber, a mattress, and, baffling, a pair of white stockings I could not explain as a rare item and quietly shelved. The pulls also unlocked the thing that mattered most, rice seeds. I can't fully explain what rice meant to me. Less a crop than a symbol. You will not go hungry. Seeing it on the menu felt like running into an old friend in a foreign country. 1 day to mature, harvested as clean grain, 20 kilos a plot. By the last night of winter, I had it cooked and steaming in bowls in front of a table groaning with food. Gabriel, my tireless machine, had sewn everyone new clothes. Even the kids got little boots and piggy leather vests. Even Aliu got coaxed into a coat, which made her look almost like a person. We built a big table with proper joinery, used smooth stones for chairs, and gathered around it. The whole household, plus Baigwa's family, every face flushed and happy, not a trace of the starved gray refugees they'd been. They didn't get chopsticks, so I gave everyone a spoon and demonstrated. Rib meat over rice, one bite, and watched a door open in every life at the table. Rice is plain. Rice is also the thing a meal is built around. The whole household fell silent and ate. After, Baigwa brought her infant over and knelt. Master, the baby still has no name. You're worldly. Would you grace her with one? I lifted the little thing into the crook of my arm. She stared up at me without crying. I glanced at Zhuohua, handing it off. Zhuohua poked the baby's pink cheek and smiled. Let's call her Little Rice. New Year passed, and the first thaw came. I sent the household back out to gather and hunt. Not for meat anymore, but routine, leaving Baigwa, Gabriel, and Eliu home. With a dragon parked in the courtyard, nothing dangerous came within miles, so I could split everyone into teams without worry. But the meat was piling up faster than we could process it. For smoking sheds already, and any more would choke the cave's airflow. Curing took salt, and all our salt came from the system at brutal prices. I badly needed a real, lasting source. Then luck dropped out of the sky. Literally. I was hunting with Zhuohua, whose own strength was a mystery to me. She killed with a flick of one finger, a blade of force, no follow-up needed, when a heavy crash sounded nearby. Something had fallen from above. We went to look and found a shattered wooden cargo crate. Zhuohua shrugged it off. The upper levels drop things sometimes, usually garbage, occasionally a merchant's lost freight. This crate was full of black brick, heavy black stone, she said, an upper-level wall material, now smashed to useless rubble. I almost left. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a flash of yellow. Something tugged at me. I turned, dug into the rubble, and pulled out a palm-sized cake of gold, etched with an archaic sun pattern, heavy and reassuring in the hand. Zhuohua's hands flew to her mouth. Dig, I said. We dug for an hour. 25 identical gold cakes, hidden inside the bricks, each a solid pound. We swept the crash site clean, threw the wreckage off the cliff, and got out of there fast. Gold hidden in masonry is gold somebody is going to come looking for. Every action movie I'd ever watched said so. But the crate had crashed on my turf, and there was no force on the wall that would make me give it back. Back home, Zhuohua examined a cake and frowned. This pattern, I've never seen it. Not currency, more like a craftwork. But it's pure gold, no question. Her advice: keep it hidden, tell the girls nothing, and when Lingdang came, pay her to escort me up to the city and convert it. First, though, I'd melt the cakes into anonymous ingots. A pile of lower-level peasants producing stamped gold artifacts was a story that would travel. So that night, I took Yingluo out, swore her to quiet, and had her, now wreathed in fire, soften the cakes one by one until I could mash the patterns flat with my army knife. By the small hours, we had a sack of featureless gold lumps and one very tired fox. 3 days later, Lingdong's wail sang in, gaudy as ever. Gold chain, jade bracelet, frog eye shades, one gold tooth short of the full set. My customers, congratulations, you survived another winter. She clocked the heap of goods behind the girls, and her eyebrows went up. Big sale this time. So, boss, what are we thinking? Aimed straight at me. I didn't bite. Wrong guy. Zhuohua's the boss. She rapped her own head, apologized, and turned to Zhuohua. Quite a haul. Times must be good. She wasn't wrong. 5 bolts of cloth, 10 meters each. 100 kilos of smoked meat. A big order from people who used to starve, and she noticed every detail. Where did dirt-poor Beastfolk get cotton? Where did the smoked surplus come from? Her eyes flicked to me, the obvious answer. Lingdang made half her money selling information, and she was assembling some. She offered 3,000 silver, generous, suspiciously so. Zhuohua called it out flat. What's your angle? Lingdang grinned, leaned in, and asked, half joking, to borrow the stud for a couple days. She didn't actually want me. She wanted me alone, talking, so she could pry information loose. Zhuohua refused smoothly, and we got down to the real business. 2 things, Zhuohua said. First, the nearest salt mine. Any leads? Lingdong's eyes flickered. If I knew where a salt mine was, I'd have sold it to the upper lords already. But, a theatrical pause. I do have a lead. Costs extra. 2,000 silver for a map. A month east, a settlement of rock goat folk. a salt-obsessed species with an innate sense for the stuff. Where they live, there's a mine. Zhuohua didn't blink. Wang Yin had told her, spend it all, take nothing home, trade everything for the salt. Done. Second, Zhuohua went on, taking Yingluo's wrist. My sister awakened recently. She needs to buy some Foxfolk essentials up top. Sunlight tea, Lingdang knew it. Sure, hop on. I'm headed to Anju City anyway. Then Zhuohua added, dry. Her. Appetite runs strong, so the stud goes too. 2 passengers. Lingdong's eyes narrowed with sudden interest. 300 silver for the ride. One way, merchants don't do round trips. 2,000 for the salt lead, 300 for passage, 700 left over for travel money. All of it pressed into my hand. Tomorrow, Yingluo and I would go up. That night, I whittled chopsticks and tried to teach everyone, which devolved into the whole table wrestling with their own fingers. Gigi nearly gave up. Spoons are easier. Until I demonstrated that mastering chopsticks meant eating more, faster, at which point she applied herself with grim focus. I caught Baigua glancing at me, swallowing words. After dinner I asked. She knelt, pulling Little Cookie down beside her. Master, I heard you're going to Anju City. Little Cookie has a great uncle there, serving in the Red Rose Knights. I beg you, take her. Let her join him. Become a knight. Learn a trade, so one day she can serve you properly. The Red Rose Knights, one of 3 orders under the Rat King of the Iron Mountain Kingdom, Zhuohua explained. Baigua's family had a soldiering tradition. That gilt pocket watch had been a knight's reward. Fair enough. One more passenger. At dawn, Baigua fussed over Little Cookie's hair, trying to make her presentable, unable to scrub away the bone-deep roughness of where they'd come from. I'll listen to Uncle, learn everything, and come back to repay the master, the kid declared, voice cracking with forced bravery. Listen more, speak less, don't show off, work hard. The master's been good to us, never forget it. I watched from a distance and didn't interrupt. I envied Little Cookie a little. However poor, she had a mother, and where the mother is, that's home. Not like me. The whale sang. Little Cake clung to her sister's neck, sobbing. I hauled Little Cookie up by the collar, took Yingluo's hand, and we boarded, straight into those round frog-eye shades. A third passenger? And a tiny one. Lingdang made a move to discuss the fee privately, taking my hand. Until Yingluo stepped between us, deadpan. The money's with me. I'll be discussing the price. Lingdang smirked. Possessive little thing. She waved it off. No charge for the kid. Blew a shrill note on a special spoon, and the whale rose. Up we go, moneymaker. The whale climbed in long zigzags to keep the cargo stable, a slow tilting ascent that took all day. By dusk, Anju City came into view, the first real town I'd seen in this world. Half of it carved into the cliff face, half clinging to the outside. A single great whale port, the only way in or out, for whales already docked. A trade hub, and a busy one. Lingdang pointed us toward an inner-city tea shop for the sunlight tea, warned us she wouldn't be heading back down. Find your own way home, and dropped us at the dock. First stop, deliver Little Cookie to the Red Rose Knights. The orders hall was a gothic black and red building guarded by 2 mousefolk in toy soldier armor. I stated our business. Little Cookie's great uncle, name of Heitenghua Daigua, roughly dummy, got a strange look from both guards. One ran inside. The other said the boy's situation was special, and the night captain was coming out. The captain was heavily armored, black plate chased with red, a rose crest on the breastplate, a great sword across her back, 2 round mouse ears poking from the helm. Strong, that was my first read. She glanced at Little Cookie and spoke flat as cold steel. Dummy's relative? Your uncle died on a mission not long ago. He was brave. He died protecting his comrades. We'll remember him always. Little Cookie stared, lost. Her whole plan was find Uncle, and Uncle was dead. The captain asked for proof of kinship. The kid had nothing. She'd never even met the man. But I produced the photograph I'd peeled from the watch. The captain studied it. Dummy mentioned an elder who served the Empress. This is indeed Royal Fong the 16th. Never said anything about a niece, though. She crouched, checked the kid's ears and tail like an inspection, and stood. You want her in the order? Little Cookie nodded hard. To protect everyone. Then serve the master, and repay his kindness. The captain glanced at me, unreadable. Good stock. She meets our standard. Name, Heitenghua Little Cookie. She can join today. I'll show her around. I asked for a little time first and took her shopping, bedding, clothes, a basin, a lunchbox, packing her off the way you'd send a kid to boarding school. I'd hidden 400 silver in her bag while she wasn't looking. She caught the size of it and tried to protest. I barked her quiet. At the gate, eyes red, she shouted at my back, "Master, I will become the strongest knight, and I'll serve you." I didn't turn around. Just survive first. I hadn't thought much of the kid before. But a dead uncle, a child alone in a strange city, no one to look after her. That's a hard road. I didn't say any of that. I just left the silver. Now for the real reason I'd come up. With my last 100 silver, I bought a long black hooded robe, the kind that swallows your whole face, plus a slaver's chain and collar, scrounging the rest. Then I pulled Ingluo into an empty alley, and a moment later, out walked a hooded figure leading a foxfolk slave on a chain. Ingluo touched the iron collar at her throat, frankly delighted by it, which was its own concern for later. "So now I'm your slave?" I smeared dirt on her face and mussed her hair until she was unrecognizable. "Right? Don't call me Wang Yan. Call me Master, and don't break character." She dropped her voice, sultry. "Master," my scalp prickled. "Behave, or I'll deal with you tonight." The disguise was insurance. What I was about to sell was valuable enough that I needed my identity buried, and a hooded man dragging a slave was menacing enough that nobody would ask questions. We found a jeweler, the Jewel Tower, and went in. A human girl met us. Plain, freckled, but draped in brocade and jade, carrying the kind of bred-in nobility I'd never seen up close. Lanue, the system told me, appraisal, commerce, gemology. I kept my voice low and muddied, reached into the robe, really, into storage, and produced a gold lump. "Can you take this?" Her breath caught, but she recovered fast and turned professional. "We can. And there's more, isn't there?" "Two," I said, "same size." She fetched her father. Lanshan, 55, master trader, top-tier gemologist, frail, a sharp old operator who read my disguise instantly and politely declined to pry. Upstairs, he tested the gold on a touchstone, a bright yellow streak. Very pure. Then the price. Gold to silver runs 100 to 1. We take a 10% cut, 90 silver per gold. Fair. I agreed. He weighed 5 lumps, 500 grams each, 10,000 silver apiece, minus the cut, 9,000 silver. Down here, 1 silver is a 10-gram sliver, and thanks to the brutal terrain and broken economy, that 1 sliver only buys a single potato at the bottom, which is why the girls had always lived so poor. Lanue brought up a wooden chest packed with neat rows of silver. I checked it, willed it into storage, and walked out without a backward glance, Lanshan bowing lower the whole way. In a back alley, I pulled off the robe and uncollared Ingluo, whose ears drooped with what looked an awful lot like disappointment. "What are you let down about?" she murmured at my ear. "Master, put it back on tonight? Please." My face went dark as a pot bottom. This girl had unlocked something. Money in hand, I went shopping for real. First the tea house, keeping the cover story whole, even though I grew spirit sunflowers myself and didn't need the tea. Unju had exactly one place that sold sunlight tea, a tucked-away spot called the Tofu Tea Room, full of foxfolk lounging on tatami. The proprietress was a tall, dark-skinned fox with a smoke pipe and a knockout figure. Shihu, the system said, beauty, keen hearing, sharp eyes, and durable. She circled Ingluo, sniffing her bloodline like a sommelier. Common spirit breed. No, wait. A thread of Desirelin blood too. Ingluo blushed and hid behind me. Her tail was mine to touch. "Thanks." I asked about the tea, and Shihu, chatty and worldly, walked us through foxfolk lore I'd never heard, treating my ignorance like proof I was a naif who'd get eaten alive by the wrong woman. The Desirelin part she explained at my ear, and I'll leave it where she put it. A rare strain, and Ingluo carried only a trace, harmless, a quirk. The relevant fact was the tea itself, brewed spirit sunflower, a foxfolk tonic that spread warmth through the limbs and sharpened the mind. I made a mental note to dry my own. A cup after a hot bath and a long day would be heaven. Shihu also tried to sell me her improved method, sunflower ground with something else into a powder, taken through a straw, and I shut that down so fast I nearly knocked the table over. Whatever that was, I'd had enough anti-drug education to want no part of it, or anything adjacent. I paid for a month of ordinary tea packets, 6 silver a day, 180 silver, and got out. She who purring an invitation to come back as Ing Luo dragged me off muttering, "Bad woman," under her breath. Then the rest of the shopping. Real tools, trowels, chisels, rulers, saws, a few of each. Spices I couldn't get from the system. Peppercorns, bay, star anise. Seeds, every kind they had, melons and vegetables. Plus two I'd been aching for. Chili and soybeans. Chili can build a whole cuisine single-handed. And soybeans, oil, milk, ferment, paste, the most versatile crop there is. The ancient East and West, the saying goes, took different tech trees. One bet on dairy, the other on the soybean. Now I'd have both. Last, the clothing store. Up here, shaped by upper-level taste. I could buy sailor uniforms and cheap-how and proper dresses. Expensive, but money was no object now, and buying clothes for my wives is hardly a loss when I'm the one who enjoys the result. Ing Luo twirled out of the fitting room in a water blue sailor uniform, glowing like a spring breeze. How do I look? Very cute. Only very cute. Super cute. She laughed, threw her arms around me, tail going. The cutest in the world, you mean? I'm too old to take that kind of fire from a pretty girl. I paid, and let her keep it on. We ate, found an inn, and Ing Luo pressed her face to the window watching the guards clear the streets against the night beasts, the lamps, the sleeping whales. Wang Yin, the outside world is really wonderful. I slipped an arm around her. This is just the beginning. Middle levels, upper levels, the very top. We'll see all of it. Together. In the morning, before heading home, I wanted to bring back something sweet for the girls, and found a bakery in the outer city. The woman who came out to greet me gave me the strangest sensation, a warmth, like a kind older sister I already knew. Mayu, the system said, bovine folk, cooking, gentle nature, and skilled medicine. Logging her handed me a medical skill passive, real physician's knowledge. Have we met before? I asked and couldn't say why. She tilted her head. Honestly, I feel the same, but I can't place any memory of you. Maybe long ago, except I'd only been in this world a few months. It made no sense. I laughed it off, bought a big bag of bread and dried fruit and cookies, and left. Outside, Ing Luo tugged my sleeve. That's sister. I felt it too, like she was my own big sister. Two of us feeling it meant it wasn't nothing. Neither of us could explain it. Next time, Ing Luo decided, let's go find that big sister again. Agreed. At the port, I hit a wall. No merchant was heading down. The bottom's too poor. Nobody wants the trip. Getting home wasn't the worry. Gabriel and I are bound through machine control. Wherever she is, I can feel the direction. I just needed a ride to the bottom. A trader finally tipped me off. The far east end of the port sold flying fish. The wall's nimble little private cabs, where a whale is a freight truck. 2 riders, no cargo, 1 flying fish, easy. Except the cheapest was 6,000 silver. The old man running the stall explained why. A rideable flying fish takes 5 years to train from infancy. Fair, but out of reach. Then he said the thing that cracked it open. If they came pre-tame, folks would just buy straight off the fishing boats. The price is the training. A wild flying fish is worth almost nothing. But I had a system store. And a sole contract. I could barely keep the grin off my face. The fishing boat, a sleeker, faster cloud whale, returned that morning, the captain flustered and sweating, apologizing, offering 10% off. The buyers grumbled until he explained. While netting, they'd accidentally hauled in a rainbow cloud shark, a cloud sea predator nearly on the level of a ravager, sour-fleshed, useless, and now thrashing the hold to pieces. They were waiting on city guards to come open the hold and dump it. This was exactly what I'd been looking for. I pushed to the front. I'll clear out your hold for you. In exchange, the rainbow cloud shark is mine. The captain met my faintly slit-pupiled eyes, swallowed his objection, and agreed on the spot. That thing was nothing but trouble to them. I dumped 3,500 points into a second soul contract and went into the hold. The shark erupted out, 5 meters of streamlined predator with skin like a living sunset cloud, shimmering orange. Beautiful, alien, and, against me, post-Dragonkin, outclassed. 3 punches and I'd nearly split its skull. The soul contract snapped tight, and to everyone watching it looked like I'd simply beaten a sea monster into submission. It crouched at my feet like a dog. The whole dock stared. The captain begged me to stay for a banquet. I declined. I've got a family, and I'd been away too long. Promised to look him up next time, took King Luo, and rode the shark off the cliff into the cloud sea. It's far more terrifying than a whale. No rails, a near-vertical free-fall plunge, and fast, whale speed. By dusk we were back at the bottom. I'd keep the shark free range in the clouds. Through the contract, I could summon it with a thought. I walked into the cave and knew something was wrong. It was nearly dinner and nobody was cooking. Everyone was clustered in the house. Baigua, Ashen, met me at the door. Master, thank goodness. Right after you left, Gigi spotted a new tribe nearby. When Mistress Shuohua and Miss Yoli went to talk to them, they were attacked. Hurt. I ran in. Gigi and Huaiwei ringed the bed. On it lay Shuohua and Yoli. Shuohua was only pale. Salamander regeneration handles almost anything. But Yoli's leg had a long gash where the scales had curled back, and bruises like she'd been struck with something heavy. The anger that rose in me was something I had to physically swallow down. Clean the wound first, stay calm. Shuohua opened her eyes, smiled, tried to rise. I pressed her back. You came home. I stroked her cheek, aching. Rest. I've got this. She read my face, saw me angry and hurting on their behalf, and her mouth curved, conspiratorial. You don't actually think the two of us came out on the losing end, do you? I blinked. Then it clicked. They're the two strongest in the house. If she genuinely wanted to negotiate, why bring Yoli, the silent killer? She'd gone out to kill from the start. The tally, a 20-person tribe, cut down to 8 survivors who fled. We were the attackers. Of course we were. The wounds were still real, though, and Yoli's gash had me sick with worry. With Moyu's medical passive, I cleaned and dressed it like a proper physician. Boiled cloth in place of alcohol, careful work, then a dose of ibuprofen. Next time something like this happens, you wait for me. Understand? Scolding, badly disguised concern. Shuohua explained why they'd struck first. The newcomers were flame demon folk, notorious across the wall. Frail, red, or yellow-skinned, able to breathe a little fire and nothing else. Yet they survive by migrating through the bottom levels, raiding, killing, burning. Isolated bottom dwellers see a strange tribe move in nearby, think nothing of it, and get ambushed. But Shuohua had lived up top. She knew the playbook cold. The moment Gigi reported them, she grabbed an axe and Yoli and wiped them out before they could move first. Yoli, waking, flushed as I bandaged her. Why didn't you wear the shield belt? Huaiwei cut in. She gave it to me, for our safety. I flicked them both on the forehead. You little idiots. Did you forget what we keep at home? Is Aliu eating for free, right? A dragon nobody on the entire wall would dare provoke, dozing in the courtyard, making this the safest spot at the bottom of the world. They'd been so used to her eating and sleeping that they'd forgotten what she was. I brought out the gifts. Qipao for Zhuohua, little dresses for Huaiwei and Gigi, the bread and cookies from Moyu's bakery. Gigi stuffed her cheeks like a hamster, and I spotted the small shape hiding behind Baigua, little cake, and waved her over, conjuring a palm-sized cream cake into my hand. Bought this for you. Eat up. She cupped it in both hands and asked, shy, can I take it home to eat? Then ran to Baigua, holding it high. Mama, you first. A child trying to be good for her tired mother. It melted the whole room. The flame demons had hurt Yoli, and that wasn't going to stand. The next morning, I rode the shark along the cliff to find the survivors. Their abandoned camp was a field of corpses, half-eaten, reeking. 12 bodies, red and yellow skin, 2 horns, slender, like the little devils of Earth's myths, and in a large sack, dried black meat, until I found, among it, a withered hand and a faceless mouse skull. Flame demons fear cold. How do they survive a whole winter? Simple. They eat people. With Mouse Potato City fallen, refugees like Baigua's family had scattered, alone and unprotected. If they hadn't found us, that sack might have held for more. I've got a decent stomach. The dried skull still sat wrong. I left, planning to hunt down the runaways, and the moment I was gone, a red head poked up from hiding. The flame demons had come back. Not out of courage, out of hunger. 8 women left, the men all killed in the fight, led by an orange-haired one with the most brains in a brainless group. They'd remembered the food in the camp and crept back for it. I'd been waiting in the clouds the whole time. Of course they came back. They couldn't feed themselves any other way. The The saber came down out of the sky, and I cut the first one clean in half. It was the first time I'd ever killed a person, and a brutal way to do it, organs and blood across the ground. Whether I was numb or something else, I felt only a faint frown. These weren't good people. If I'd been weaker, that sack might have held Ing Luo, Gigi Zhuohua. They deserved it. I went through them like a meat grinder. 2 died before they understood I'd come back. The rest scattered, 2 of them running straight off the cliff in panic. The shark sealed the escape, leaving 2 alive. Lupia, the orange-haired one, 19, fire breath, and, per her panel, incompetent at farming, herding, and building. Logging her gave me a heat adaptation passive, useful, at least, and unlocked the store item that changed my plans. A slave collar, 2,000 points. It does 2 things. If the wearer thinks of resisting, it delivers a stunning shock. And the master can, remotely, trigger blades inside the collar, beheading the wearer in 1/10 of a second. I collared both. The one who lunged at me got dropped by the shock before she reached me. Then, to test it, I triggered the unconscious one's collar, and her head came off clean. Lupia watched, mine nearly breaking, and collapsed. I'm adapting that as it happened. He's not the man who drowned in the moat anymore. I crouched to her level, pleasant as anything. You're my slave now. Resist, and you end up like her. She nodded frantically, swearing she understood. I brought her home, but kept her outside the cave, the courtyards where the slaves would live. Aliu's presence meant nothing dangerous came near anyway, so it was safe enough. The girls crowded around the new flame demon, curious. Zhuohua looked uneasy. They're all bad seeds. Aren't you afraid? I took her hand, pressed her thumb to the back of the collar, and a strange linkage flooded into her. Try it. Don't shock me, don't shock me. Heh, fun, Zhuohua said. Every member of the household got authorization, even Baigua. They took turns until Lupia was twitching and foaming. She looks kinda dead? Huaiwa worried. If she dies, toss her off the cliff, I said, and Lupia, hearing it, dragged herself upright, shaking, insisting she was still alive. Please don't throw me off. Turns out she was unusually shock-resistant. Good. Harder to kill that way. I gave her a grass lean-to and the rule. Eat the leftovers, and if there are none, with Aliu in the house, there usually aren't, go hungry. Her job, feed the smoking sheds, chop wood, clear weeds. Nothing complicated. With the household stable again, I caught up on Unju City's spoils. I redeemed a basic spatial box from the store, a meter cube that stores 10 kilos of anything, and, it turned out, levels up. Basic to mid to high to top tier, and can be specialized with rare items into a time-stop box or a cold storage box. Exactly the food preservation I'd lacked, the reason I'd been killing myself smoking and curing meat all this time. A whole subsystem folded into a 500-point item. I built a 4-meter workbench, set the box on it, and called it my workshop. And the kitchen got an upgrade too. Among the new unlocks, beyond the spices and the dozen vegetables and the chili and soy, was one more item. Milk. 300 points a liter. The cow unlocks milk, reasonable enough. Which made me think, unbidden, of Mayu's gentle face at that bakery, and, ahem, who doesn't love a kind older sister? I converted a liter, rich, clean, fresh. I'd already gotten soybeans. Now milk. The 2 tech trees of Earth's cuisine, both in my hands. The next few days, the whole household's table was about to take a leap forward. Before I left for the salt, I spent days over-preparing, stockpiling vegetables in a new open-air store, fermenting milk into yogurt by trial and error until I cracked it, stacking food the household didn't strictly need. I think part of me had just decided I couldn't stand the thought of my wives going hungry while I was gone. Lingdong's hand-drawn map put the rock goat settlement a month east, even on the shark, a round trip of a couple weeks. So I made sure Zhuohua had everything. She walked me to the cave mouth and took my face in her hands. Stop worrying. With me here, you don't trust the house. I did. But I fussed anyway. If anything dangerous comes, run home and put Aliu on it. She doesn't eat for free. Zhuohua kissed me, then leaned to my ear with a wicked little whisper. Take Yuli with you. Try to eat her on the way back. And there was Yuli beside me, frozen and red. Zhuohua had clearly already set this up. I sighed, waved off the rest, and we mounted the shark. It was my first long trip in this world. The shark hugged the cliff, the cloud sea scrolling past in a single endless blur. By nightfall we camped on a ledge, opened a couple of cans, and I had an idea. The night beasts climb the wall to hunt, and the shark flies along the wall. So why not travel by night and rest by day? Safer to move when the cliff crawlers are the same threat we're already dodging. Yuli agreed. We slept a few hours, woke near midnight, and rode on. And sure enough, 3 reeking dog skulls clawed up onto our ledge moments after we'd left it. Avoided entirely. Clever. I felt smart. The cliff punished me for feeling smart. A slick tentacle whipped out of the dark and seized the shark mid-flight, snapping it to a dead stop. We nearly pitched off into the abyss. I caught Yuli, kicked off the shark's head, and dropped to the ground with the saber out, hard in my stomach. I'd underestimated the night. What climbed over the ledge wasn't a dog skull. 2.5 meters of corpse-pale thing, 2 huge clawed hands, and a head that was mostly a ringed, grinding maw that couldn't close, and out of it lolled an enormous barbed tongue dripping fetid slime. That was the tentacle, a long tongue. Yoli, scared, she drew her iron spear and stood like a proud knight. No, she'd worn the shield belt this time. Good. I took point, thick-skinned, fast-healing, the obvious front line, while she played support, slipping behind it to stab the ribs in threes and retreat, never greedy. We had a rhythm. The thing's hide rang like iron under the saber. My hands went numb from the shock of every blow. But round by round its wounds piled up. Then it got clever. Sensing my killing blow coming, it spun and ignored me entirely, taking a saber to the spine that split it to the bone, just to drive both claws at Yoli. A life-for-a-life trade aimed straight at her. Her shield held the strikes, but Dilia had warned me that belt ran on a battery, and between every hunt and the white-armed tiger and now this, it was nearly empty. Crack. Like an eggshell. The shield broke. Fall back. Too late. She'd never outrun that tongue. I threw myself onto the thing's back, fingers tearing at its maw, bloody where the fangs caught me, and screamed at her to go. The shark swept out of the clouds, snatched Yuli clear, and then it was just me and the long tongue. Come on. You and me. Without her I was slower, the hunger that fuels my healing gnawing harder with every wound. In the end I took the tongue clean through my left shoulder, but I opened its throat, and it went down and stayed down. Ripping the barbed tongue back out of my shoulder, tore a fistful of meat with it. Disgusting to the last. Then the corpse did something new. A purple-black light bled out of it. My alarms went off, and then the light shattered, reforming into a soft green, condensing into a single point that flew straight into my forehead. Obtained. Basic purification seed ×1. A what? It just floated there in my mind. No description, no danger. Only a deep, strange calm whenever I focused on it. The night beasts I'd killed before had never dropped this. A level threshold, maybe. I filed it away and whistled the shark down. Yoli took one look at the hole in my shoulder and burst into tears she couldn't stop, biting her lip bloody. If I were stronger, you wouldn't be hurt. I reached up and pinched her lips apart. Stop chewing your mouth. You'll bruise it, and then it won't be pretty. She just trembled. No more cliff hugging by night. Lesson learned the hard way. I found a high cave, 20 meters up, and we holed up. My shoulder was already closing, fist-sized to ping-pong-sized, dragonkin and the clotting between them giving me near-joie regeneration, everything but a severed limb. The hunger hit like a tide, and I devoured cans and milk like a starved ghost. Yoli, aching at the sight, took the spoon. Let me feed you. One hand's awkward. I grinned. Okay, wife feeds me. I honestly couldn't tell you when she and I had gotten this close. The tiger hunt, maybe, or the bath, but I'd fallen for this silent, prickly girl, and I knew it now. I asked her, gently, to tell me about when she was small. She looked away a long time. Then, I'm not really a Beastfolk. My mother was raped by a band of men, and I'm what she had after. I'm not truly a snake. I never even knew who my father was. Her tribe had been crushed, the women caged in a cave as living toys. Her mother bore her there, never resented her, shielded her with her own body while those men used her in front of the child chained beside her. One night her mother bit the man who came for her to death, took his key, and ran with Yoli into the dark. But she was too sick, too starved. She'd always given the food to the child, and when the men ran them down, the wound she took finished her a few steps later. I thought she was sleeping. I lay next to her and waited. I was so hungry I wanted to cry, but I didn't dare make a sound. That was where Joie found her, half feral on the corpse of her mother, attacking anyone who came near. Joahua kept coming back with food, took the bites, healed, and finally let her out. I held her while she wept herself empty. I didn't tell her my fist was clenched white where she couldn't see it. When we get home, take me to find that tribe. She refused instantly, terrified for me. It was one of the strongest tribes at the bottom. I let it go out loud. I did not let it go. That night the long tongue's poison surfaced in me, cold to the marrow, hallucinations rising. And I was back on Earth, in a cramped rented room, my mother's voice clawing out of the dark. People your age are already married. Your father and I divorced because you're useless. I gave birth to a worthless thing. I'm only killing myself because you forced me to. The blood on the floor, the screaming. The spring night, I deleted every contact and ran, and tasted something I thought was freedom. Except the voices followed me down here too. I'm sorry, it's all because I'm worthless. And then warmth. Arms around me in the dark. Don't deny yourself. You're already wonderful. Even without any special powers, I'd love you. You're a thoughtful person. You show kindness in your own quiet way. You did nothing wrong. Don't apologize to anyone. I love you, Wang Yan. If you're cold, hold my hand. A drowning man grabs whatever saves him. I held on to Yuli like a lock closing, and we got through the worst of it together. Two people each carrying their own dark, each lighting the others in the only way they knew. By dawn my body had burned the poison out. I woke to Yoli's sleeping face, her arms around my waist. I leaned to her ear. I love you too. She stirred, sleepy, and when she made me say it again I kissed her instead, and said it to her face. And when she saw the shoulder fully healed, only a faint pink mark, she let out a breath. Then she remembered what Joahua had told her. The same staging the others had walked into. I'll do what I've done every time. Cut the scene, keep what it means. Because the morning after, Yuli awakened. Her panel read a new talent, primordial form, and a new specialty, tenacity, which has all damage taken, near impervious now even without the belt. And the primordial part, she could turn into her oldest, truest shape. She didn't want to show me. She thought it was ugly. I made her anyway, because of course I wanted to see it. Her hands vanished, legs fused into a tail, and a vivid green serpent the size of a war spear coiled into being, 1.5 meters thick at the widest, half filling the cave, its tail trailing out the mouth. Anyone else would have gone cold down the spine. But those slit eyes were unmistakably her, and she nudged her huge triangular head against my cheek. In that form she felt more terrifying than a ravager. Roughly 10 minutes of transformation, with a wave of exhaustion after, a small price. We traveled honestly after that. Days, nights in caves, and a week of riding brought us to thin, savanna-like scrubland, rock goat country. I sent the shark off into the clouds, and we went on foot. We found a girl gathering roots, wheat-skinned, with absurdly large spiral horns. Lily, 16, logging her gave me endurance, which sounds like a joke and is actually a fine support passive, more stamina and faster recovery. She took one look at me, a human, and bolted straight up the cliff face, running on a near-vertical wall like it was a gentle slope. I just stared. I followed at a distance on the shark, and she led me right to the settlement, a hollow 30 meters up a sheer face, accessible only to climbing goats. No problem for me. I can fly. Humans. Lily shrieked the instant she was inside. Humans came again. The whole settlement erupted. The humans are here to steal our salt, get the weapons, hide the women, protect the priestess. And 12 goatmen formed a bristling ring of bone spears around their elders and children, all aimed at me. I'd come to trade, not raise the place. I borrowed the faintest edge of Aliu's dragon aura and let my pupils slit, and the courtyard went dead silent. I'm here to do business. Bring out your chief. I've got a big order. A 2-meter slab of a chief shouldered through. Humans are a greedy race. We give you nothing. Leave. I shrugged and conjured a heap of fresh vegetables onto the ground. Eggplant, cabbage, radish, glistening with dew. The goat folk, who favor greens and almost never see anything fresh, started visibly cracking. Somebody's stomach growled audibly. This proves I'm here to trade, I said. Keep making trouble, and I won't be polite. A cold drip of sweat rolled down the chief's face. He could read a room. Ah, a merchant. Forgive us, you're not like the others. I named my price. 1/2 kilo of vegetables per kilo of salt, 100 kilos minimum, no haggling. and planted a man-high saber in the dirt to underline it. They balked. They'd pay. Salt's their lifeblood, and fresh vegetables out here are a once-a-year miracle. The chief sighed and said, "Let me bring out the priestess. She'll speak with you." And the priestess wasn't a goat at all. She was a rabbit. Shinran, rabbit folk. Age, 3,586. Talent, a Shikigami black snake. Specialties, a hypnotic golden voice, social mastery, agelessness, extraordinary metabolism, which is what logging her gave me. Far more energy from far less food, meaning future wounds would gnaw at me less and close faster. Black-furred, gold-eyed, in an immaculate dark Miko robe, she moved like a vessel for something divine. Greetings, far-traveled merchant. I am a witch who walks the wall, purifying its filth. Lily has told me your terms. Your prices are fair. On the rock goat's behalf, I accept. Her voice was a drug. I noted it carefully. That golden voice was no idle line. The deal closed at 500 kilos of salt for my vegetables. Will pass my hopes. Shinran apologized that the goats weren't greedy, that salt was generations of survival, that if it ran out they'd have to migrate and most would die, that nearby humans raided them constantly, which was why they feared my kind. All true. None of it a reason to gouge me. She invited Yuli and me to rest in her quarters while the salt was hauled, and that voice nudged me into nodding before I decided to. Her room sat deepest in the cave, the only wooden house among the mud ones, neat and faintly orchid-scented, a little shrine in the corner. Lily brought licorice tea. I deliberately took the cup nearest Shinran, keeping a card up my sleeve. The witch sipped first and opened with, "You learned this place from the little blue-haired merchant, didn't you? No one else would tell anyone where the rock goats live." She turned her gold eyes on me. "Please don't tell others, either. Salt is precious. Expose them and you doom them." I told her, truthfully, that I'd rather nobody knew. I wanted a long-term arrangement. What I didn't say, I'd keep the secret. Ling Dang, who sells information for a living, was another matter. She introduced herself as a wandering witch who'd found these children plague-struck, healed them, and stayed. Then, lightly, "You don't seem like merchants." And that trick of pulling things from nowhere. I've never seen its like. I deflected, petty sleight of hand. We're a small middle-level group, nothing more. Her eyes narrowed, just a flicker. The rest was empty courtesy. I didn't dare go deep with her. A documented hypnotic voice, 3,500 years of cunning. I wasn't going to let her steer me. We finished, the salt was ready, and I left. Except I'd lingered too long. Dusk caught us, and we had to stay the night. I traded a few more kilos of vegetables for a clean spare room. We'd barely laid out the bedding when a knock came. "The priestess invites you to dinner." Just me, not Yoli. I didn't want to go, but it was her ground. Refusing was an insult. Eat fast, leave faster. I went. The table was set with real care, greens and jerky soup with little gold beads of fat, a full bowl of rice, a side of pickled radish. I sat and said nothing. She smiled and asked my name. "Call me Han Li." I lied flatly, handing her a cultivation novel hero's name. "You're lying," she said, smiling. "Believe it or not, that's my name. If you won't tell me, you don't trust me." "What?" Gold eyes, steady. "Did you see something?" I stopped pretending. "When we met, you called yourself a wandering witch passing through. But your room isn't a traveler's. And your whole manner isn't guiding these goats. It's leeching off them. Fresh food, attendance, in a place this barren? Your words don't match your life. You called me here alone, so let's be efficient. What do you want?" She laughed until she nearly cried. "Leech, you're so blunt." And her serene, elegant aura simply evaporated. "You saw through me fast. As you said, I do live on the rock goat's offerings. But I'm not only taking. Do you know how many spears this tribe has caught, sitting on a treasure they can't defend? A tribe gives offerings. I shelter them for a century. That's my way of surviving. Just earning a meal." She had a point. Salt is a strategic resource even on Earth. But I couldn't shake how much of my own agreement was that voice quietly editing my opinions. Only she knew. "You feel different," she said, chin on her hand, the elegance gone lazy, black ears drooping. "I called you here to ask a favor. I want to push my awakened power further." My pupils tightened. That was my secret, the ability to trigger or strengthen an awakening. How did she know? I denied it. She ignored the denial and spoke each word deliberately. "A spirit kindling seed. usually a male of the sapient races, kindles latent potential or strengthens existing potential through union with a virgin, using vital essence as the catalyst. I'm right, aren't I? I kept denying. She offered, plainly, to give me her first night, 3,500 years kept, in exchange. I refused. A 3,000-year-old stranger of one day, offering exactly the thing my supposed power needs? And her affinity sat frozen at zero, neither rising nor falling. Every alarm I had was ringing. I declined, deflected through the rest of dinner, thanked her, and got out, ignoring the strange light in her gold eyes and her parting invitation to come back any time. I held Yuli through a light sleep, woke before dawn, and left without a word to anyone, the shark carrying us off into the clouds. The haul, 500 kilos of salt, decades of it, processed, 2 new codex entries, 2 useful passives, and 2 new unlocks. Basic handcraft knowledge capsule, 1,000 points. And construction blueprint. Virtual sun, 35,000 points. A what? A buildable artificial sun, bright by day, dark by night, tailor-made for a household living in a lightless cave. Drop the blueprint, feed it materials, done. Perfect, and an absurd price, before any materials, with a whole house still to build. Steps, one at a time. House first. 18 days, round trip, and we were home. Nothing had gone wrong. With Zhuohua holding the house, I'd never truly worried. I told her everything, and when I mentioned traveling by night, her face went strange. The most dangerous things on the wall aren't the climbers. They're the ambush predators clinging to the rock. Passive hunters. And those are usually very strong. You and Yoli took a lot of damage, didn't you? I downplayed it. She blamed herself for not warning me. I told her it was my own clever idea that nearly got us killed. Lesson learned. Then I asked, have you heard of a spirit kindling seed? She tilted her head, lost. So I told her about the black rabbit, and she half remembered. A witch with a good reputation in the middle levels, kind, dignified, said to shelter the weak. I almost laughed. The witch I'd met was a greedy egoist in a saint's robe, but that golden voice, of course, rewrites what people remember of her. Zhuohua confirmed the rest. The ability to kindle awakenings was real and rare beyond reckoning. She nudged me, delighted. So you ate little Yoli? I admitted it. Wonderful, she sighed, genuinely glad. I saw the change in her the moment you came back. She's not the closed-off child she was. Thank you, Wang Yan. You opened her up. I puffed up. I'm a good man. Sure it's not just lechery? In the half-month I'd been gone, the girls had logged a fresh fortune in herb locations for me to harvest. Over 10,000 points toward the house. I prepped materials, dumped the grunt work on Lupia, clear the ground, stack the wood, dig the foundation, and when there was nothing left, move the brick pile from here to there and then back, purely to make her life hard, and started cracking the 500 kilos of salt, pulverizing it with the whole household's swinging wooden mallets, then soaking, filtering through coarse cloth, and boiling down. Slow work I handed to Huaiwe, our cooking cat, who developed a real love for the stove. Then the build. Only Wang Yin with a capsule and Gabriel could do skilled construction. The rest were laborers. The plan, a 2-story house, 6 private rooms upstairs, with living room, kitchen, dining room, bath, and pool below, brick and cement, dressed in milled timber for warmth, until from outside it read like a log cabin. Gabriel projected the blueprint. I gave Zhuohua a handcraft capsule so her crafting talent could finish lumber to spec. By Gabriel's count, roughly 220,000 bricks, 350,000 points minimum. At 700 a day from Sunfruit, prohibitive. I needed a faster scheme. So I borrowed the one from the trip out. Hire the bottom-level tribes to dig herbs for me. The wall is enormous. Even rare herbs add up across enough ground. The shark let me hit 2 tribes a day. I'd open a can of beef in front of a clutch of slack-jawed wild folk. 1 herb, 1 can, and watch them lose their minds at the smell of modern high-salt, high-fat stew. The chief of the Stone Tribe, a sharp woman named Hongshire, sealed it on the spot. A system recoverable herb averages 1,000 points. A can costs 100. 900 points of pure margin per herb. I'd become a capitalist in another world. I seeded the job across 10 nearby tribes. One was all mouse folk, uniformly tiny, hard to tell apart, who preferred fruit cans to meat, and who were fast. I poached 5 sturdy mouse women as construction labor, lured by, among other things, strawberries, which I'd unlocked in Unju. Their leader rallied them with a speech. The kind master will feed us meat and fruit, and even strawberries, but we have to work. 5 volunteers, cheering. I gave them directions home and let them march over. I built them lean-tos beside baiguas, fed them communal pot rice with a little salt, a feast to them, and put Gigi in charge of training fellow mice. She took to bossing like a natural. Within days they could mortar, lay brick, and drive piles. I'm not a pure blood-sucking capitalist. Strawberries every third night, on schedule, and they were so happy they swore they never wanted to leave. The clearer my own ambitions got, the more obvious the core problem became: labor. And before labor, food. Because the whole household still ate off 10 farm plots, and you can't bring on a dozen workers and starve them. Spring slid into summer. With the heat, I built out the spatial box's potential. The basic box levels up and specializes: a time-stop box, a cold storage box, a living box, and a terminal box. The first 3 are literal. The terminal box is the broken one, an external system warehouse that, fed points, generates terminals, and anyone holding a terminal can pull items from it, no distance limit. Hand every girl a terminal, and the whole household shares my storage. Buy something in Unju, drop it in the box, and Zhuohua pulls it out at home instantly. Its upgrade materials were incomprehensible, so I shelved it behind the virtual sun. The cold storage box, though, a -10 degrees Celsius mini fridge, needed. Frost sealing stone ×1. Blue steel ×100 kg. Wood ×5, 000 kg. Stone ×5, 000 kg. Points ×2, 000. Everything but the frost sealing stone and blue steel I had on hand. I'll ask in Unju, I thought, and then Huaiwei came tearing up the path. 2 gray-skinned weirdos showed up asking about a crate of black bricks. We said we hadn't seen it, and they tried to attack us. Ingluo and Zhuohua are fighting them. Black bricks. The owners of my gold had come knocking. By the time I reached the spot, it was wildly one-sided. A fox girl wreathed in fire stood atop a massive serpent. Yoli, raining fireballs on 2 robed figures scrambling and cowering, scorched ragged. I'd come to back the girls up. They didn't need it. I coughed. They reeled in their powers and trotted to me like nothing had happened, Ingluo and Yuli each grabbing an arm. The 2 robed men huddled in the dirt, blackened, their backs sprouting blood-flesh tentacles that still lashed even as their owners begged. Denyant and Night, filth husk folk. Talent, blood-flesh tentacles. Specialties, poison immunity, addict, filth cultists, stench. Logging them gave me poison immunity, which I barely needed, but a free boost to toxin resistance never hurts. Why come onto my ground and start swinging? I asked. The younger one, Denyant, found some idiot courage and announced himself. We are walking believers of the Withered Wood Church. We came for the holy materials our church lost. You're the only living souls nearby, and you claim ignorance. Liars. You struck the church's people. You've defied the church's authority. That cargo is precious to the high priest. Tell us where it is, or die. I laughed. Withered Wood Church, so my gold had been theirs. Any moral footing I'd had vanished, and the kid was threatening me. The older one, Knight, a slick operator, went white and mouthed 2 words at his partner that even a non-lip reader could parse as "you idiot." Then he groveled with skill. We'll just report back. No harm meant, lest the high priest come himself, which was both apology and veiled threat. Cut us down and a priest comes next. The gold hidden in the bricks, I said. Yeah, I took it. Denyant shrieked betrayal. Knight begged for his life and threw the kid under the bus. I pulled out a length of cotton rope, smiling warmly. I don't know if I'm finished, but somebody here is, very soon. Guess who? I'm adapting what comes next as written, because it's who he's becoming. I snapped Denyant's limbs like kindling, strung him from a tree, and told him the dog skulls would enjoy his blood and flesh tonight. Then offered him false mercy, a count to 100,000, a thread of hope to keep him conscious and unshocked so he'd still be alive when the night beasts found him. The whole point was the bait. From the start, neither of them was leaving. Night, the survivor, I collared like a dog and walked home to interrogate, fitting him with one of the bladed slave collars at the cave mouth. From now on you're a dog I keep. Talk. Desperate to prove his worth, He spilled what he knew, holding a little back to stay useful. He and Denayan were the lowest sort of believer, sent to scour the bottom for the gold. The high priest cared enough to come down personally and direct the search. His strength. Fifth rank, at least. Terrifying. I've never seen a fifth rank, but at the bottom, he's the apex. The church grades beast strength. A dog skull is beneath ranking, a giant dog skull is first rank, a common ravager is second. So a fifth rank priest was something else entirely. And the church's base, the giant bone tribe, the strongest known tribe at the bottom, where the high priest likely was. The strongest bottom-level tribe. My stomach turned over. Was that where Yoli's mother died? If so, a very convenient coincidence. I'd be paying it a visit. Knight had outlived his use. I told him he was a good dog, that I'd promote him, watched him bow his old head to the ground in gratitude, and triggered the collar. The head came off clean. I kicked the body off the cliff. I'd never meant for him to live. He'd been a mouth to empty, and I emptied it. The next stretch was quieter, house raising and cooking. With the iron pot freed up, I taught Huiwa more dishes. She was a natural, and she lit up making them more than eating them. She begged to come to Anju to see how other people cooked, and I agreed. I woke her the next morning by accidentally yanking her tail. She's a saint of a cat for not hissing. We loaded the shark with cloth and hides and jerky to sell, and rode up. Huiwa clinging to me face first the whole way, badly airsick. I'd had a list before we ever left. Ask about the cold box materials, the frost sealing stone, and blue steel. And, yes, visit Moyu the bakery cow. The giant bone tribe I discussed with Zhuohua after the trip, scout first, act later. In Anju we converted the goods to silver, 5,300, and went to dinner at a pricey inner-city restaurant so Huiwa could study foreign cuisine. She was a cat-eared vision in the little black dress I'd bought her, clinging to my arm like we were a couple on a date. We were, I conceded, on a date. The food was Western, steak, seafood pasta, hummus, not a stir-fry in sight. The technique honestly a notch behind what I'd taught Huiwa. She found it strange, but edible, and got the answer she came for. Everywhere has its own way of cooking. Then the trouble. A bleach-blonde rich kid sauntered over, eyeing Huiwa. Brother, your companion's pretty. Mind introducing us? I hate this exact cliché. Before he could finish his line, I put a fist through his face and drove him into the floorboards. And learned, from the panicking owner, that I'd just embedded the city lord's youngest son. Of course, the doctor they fetched was Moyu, the bakery cow, who happened to supply the restaurant. Surprised and delighted to see me, gentle as ever, her hands glowing healing green as she stabilized the kid. The second son arrived next, Connell, in a sharp blue suit and gold-rimmed glasses, the responsible one. Who hit him? I did. Moyu, bless her, jumped in to ask if the medical fee could just be covered, but I waved her off and stared Connell down, pupils slitting, until the hair on his neck stood up like he'd been marked by a predator. And Connell, to everyone's shock, turned and drove his own brother into the floor, harder and meaner than I had. No theater in it. Trash. Begging for your life by calling me brother now. When the kid screamed apologies, Connell stopped, bowed to me with genuine aristocratic grace, and apologized for the family's poor discipline, offering to cover my whole night and the damages. His panel read clean, Connell Jiefeng, human, talent inspire, specialties command, combat, keen sight, art. Not an act. A reasonable man with a reasonable city lord behind him. Anju couldn't be all bad. I waved it off and left with Huiwa, Moyu walking us out. I thanked her. She shook her head. You call me sister, after all, and absently scratched Huiwa's head until the cat was purring like an engine. Different from the fox girl you brought last time. Both yours. I admitted it, blushing. She teased me, then sighed. She couldn't go home yet. With the night beast striking harder, the city walls lost people every night, and the Lord had personally asked her to heal the wounded. I don't want to, but I can't watch those guards bleed for us and do nothing. A genuinely kind person. I told her to be careful, and we parted, promising to visit the bakery tomorrow. We took a room, the same inn, the same bed as last time, Huiwa in it now instead of Ingluo. She came on bold and lost her nerve at the last second, clutching a pillow. I didn't push, just held her a while, and she purred herself calm against my chest. I was nearly asleep when the sounds of slaughter reached the window. We got up to look. The inn had a clear view of the outer port, and I froze. I'd never seen a beast tide. Dog skulls no longer in threes but in hundreds, charging in waves. Giant dog skulls salted through them, and things I'd never seen at all, including a humanoid thing flying on its own flayed skin, 80% enormous mouth, like something out of a fever dream. The city's defense was holding it at the wall. Wang Yin, that little one, doesn't she look like little Cookie? I followed her point. At the rear of a row of iron-clad mouse knights, the Red Rose, stood a tiny figure behind a shield bigger than she was. Little Cookie pulled out to observe the veterans and bank some combat experience. Safe enough for now. The tide was held mainly at 3 points, 3 roughly third-ranked beasts each pinned by a single figure. And one of those figures I recognized. The Red Rose Knight Captain, the one who'd taken little Cookie in. The beast tide was a spectacle I'd never seen. Dog skulls in their hundreds, giant ones salted through, things I had no names for. The Red Rose Knight Captain held one of the worst, a bloated, 3-headed horror, and against it her body barely reached the size of its palm. Yet she danced through its strikes in heavy armor, every swing of her oversized blade trailing blood-red rose petals and opening a fresh wound. The armor moved on her like paper. Pure, ugly experience. She never took a scratch. But I saw the other side of it too. A fanged toad thing seized a mouse knight in one fist and crammed her into its maw, chewing through shell and steel and bone, a tail dangling at its lips. Huiwa went pale beside me. I pulled her close and decided we'd seen enough. And then a shriek tore across the port, baby cry sharp, drilling into my skull from blocks away. Down at the wall, the captain, her name was Kwang Yewei, a knight of the Iron Mountain Kingdom stationed to help Unju hold the night, sheared an arm off her beast and glanced at the other 2 fronts, both going badly. 3 lead beasts tonight, each pinned by 1 defender, and the other 2 defenders were weaker than her. She needed to finish fast and reinforce them. Then a 4th climbed the wall, 8 hands gripping the cliff edge, then a vast head ringed with 8 spindly arms, its face a mask of grief screaming a sound that dropped the weaker soldiers where they stood. Eardrums burst. Nobody was free to stop it. And it didn't pause. It drove straight for the city, where thousands of unarmed civilians waited. Connell, the responsible son, abandoned his command post and threw himself to the front, thin sword raised, sweating, because letting that thing in meant pure slaughter. I sighed. I hadn't wanted to get involved. But Unju was the city closest to home, the one I bought supplies from. I couldn't watch it fall. Huiwa, find somewhere safe. I'll be right back. The saber came out of storage, the shark out of the clouds, and I kicked off the windowsill into the sky. The screaming head streaked toward Connell, and I dropped onto its skull and booted it back the way it came. He'd braced himself to die, the gold-rimmed glasses focused on the figure who'd saved him. It's him, the man who hit Fen. Go ahead and die first, then, I told the thing. It was the long tongue all over again. My saber a meat grinder, its hide ringing like iron, purple-black blood weeping from its eye sockets. I took it apart, and the moment it fell, the familiar green light condensed and shot into my forehead, another purification seed. Still no idea what they were for, still that strange calm. The other 3 fronts closed out behind me. Kwang Yewei finished hers, the city lord's eldest daughter and the defense captain finished theirs, and the tide broke and scattered. I left before anyone could thank me. Not my circus. The eldest daughter pulled off her helmet, golden hair spilling out, and turned out to be a lowly knight, tiny, fierce. Her name was Natia. Connell told her about the mysterious man, including that the man had beaten their wastrel brother Finn over a dinner table insult. Did you hit Finn too? She asked. Yes. She nodded, satisfied. Find out where he's staying. We visit tomorrow. We thank him properly. The next morning, Connell was waiting outside my inn, bowing low with no rich boy airs at all, begging me to come to the city lord's manor so his mother and sister could thank me in person. Rewards, I figured. I'm not unreasonable. I went. The manor was deep in the inner city, white marble and grand. Inside stood 2 women, and one battered kneeling figure I recognized instantly as Fen, the bleach blonde who'd started it. Angelina Jade. Human, 48, talent mind tremor, the city lord, gorgeous, hard to believe she was nearing 50. And the green-dressed golden lowly beside her was the elder daughter, Natia Qingfeng, 24, talent cleave, the one who'd held a lead beast, despite looking like she'd snap in a breeze. They thanked me with real grace, no lordly condescension. Then Natia's voice went cold. She'd heard Finn offended me. She lifted one armored boot and kicked him flat. Kneel. Apologize. Angelina watched, arms folded, tacitly permitting all of it, and I finally understood why Finn was so terrified of his big sister finding out. She'd genuinely break his legs. I'd hit the kid once for a single line. Connell had hit him again. Now Natia had clearly worked him over a third time. I almost felt sorry for him. It's fine, Lady Natia. I already taught him his lesson. Finn slammed his head to the floor in gratitude. Thank you, brother, thank you. And his affinity ticked up with every kowtow, which was its own kind of unsettling. Angelina noted, with a strange catch in her voice, that her youngest had peculiar tastes, but absolutely no designs on my companion. I let it go. Over a lavish Western dinner, Angelina got to business. Why come to Unju? I told her plainly. I was after frost sealing stone and blue steel for something I was building. The blue steel was findable. The frost sealing stone, rare this far down. But, conveniently, she had one in her private collection, and she'd been wondering how to thank me. Both, plus the steel, would be mine. I had no objection to that. Anything else you need in Unju? She was angling toward the real ask. I told her to say it. The Witheredwood Church, she explained, had stirred the whole wall. The upper powers were finally taking notice and the tide would likely ebb soon. But in the meantime, Unju was bleeding defenders every night, the city walls and the Red Rose both thinning. She'd already sent word to the Iron Mountain Kingdom for reinforcements, 10 days out. Would I hold the wall for those 10 days? 5,000 silver per day. I have little interest in money, I said, eyes blazing with sincerity. I simply can't bear to see Unju's people scattered to the winds. With great power comes great responsibility. If I don't stand up, what becomes of the defenseless? Natia and Connell had to look away to hide their faces. Angelina laughed outright. 50,000 silver for 10 days of work I could do in my sleep, plus more purification seeds. Deal. I spent the gap between fights visiting Moyu, the bakery cow, gentle, warm, the kind of presence that settles you. She'd heard about the giant beast someone had kicked off the wall, and worked out it was me. You're stronger than you look. And that sounds dangerous. Child's play, I said, and Huayue, cheeks stuffed with cookies, parroted me proudly. Mayu told me to come to her if I were ever hurt. She couldn't fight, but she trusted her healing. She kept refilling Huayue's plate, beaming like an ant, and refused to let me pay. I just like watching the little one eat. Then I went to see little Cookie at the Red Rose. Months had changed her. Taller, the baby softness gone, a fierce little braid, the timid mouse replaced by something with steel in it. She thanked me for sending her there. Hard and exhausting. Yes, but better than crying from hunger. She'd made friends, found kind seniors, even learned to read. And, she whispered, the night captain looked out for her specially, because the captain was secretly her aunt by marriage. She and the late dummy had been lovers, an open secret. No wonder the kid was thriving. I told her to write home, and she did. I told Huayue to take the shark back after that night. It knew the route now, so Zhuohua wouldn't worry. I'd follow in a few days. Her tail drooped, but she went. That night, fighting the lead beasts was trivial. I'd grab whichever was most convenient and drop it. The defense's whole posture shifted from desperate holding to something close to counterattack. And the morning after Huayue left, before she rode out, she told me, blushing, that she'd awakened too, exactly as Ingluo and Yuli had promised. Talent, blink. She could flicker from one spot to another in an instant. She demonstrated, vanishing and reappearing a few meters off, delighted with herself, until 5 jumps left her winded. Not infinite, but a serious gift. Of the whole household, only Gigi hadn't awakened now. I sent Huayue home happy. Unju wasn't a place to linger. Too much could go wrong. I stayed alone, helping Moyu at the bakery between watches, ringing up customers in an apron. And one evening, over tea, I floated an idea. Mix the milk into the black tea and sell it. Milk tea, I called it. A craze back home, hot or iced, every season. Moyu tried it, fell for it instantly, saw the business in it, but worried about the cost of milk. When my eyes drifted, she went scarlet. What are you thinking? I'm a bovine beastkin, not a dairy cow. I apologized, mortified. Her milk came pricey from a few nearby villages, since it spoiled fast. Then the door chimed. and in walked Shihu, the dark-skinned fox from the tea house, here to collect cherry cakes Mayu supplied her. She spotted me, delighted, teased us both mercilessly, and then said something that stuck a hook in me. How are things with your half-blood Desireland girlfriend? No. Stronger urges lately. It landed. Ingluo had grown less shy and more uninhibited over time. I'd half noticed without thinking about it. Shihu's read. Ingluo's trace of Desireland blood was slowly spreading its influence. She'd become more like one over time. Good news for you, Shihu purred. It was not good news to me. I genuinely care about Ingluo, and I didn't want her drifting toward a label that reduces a person to one appetite. How do I stop it? Shihu shrugged. I don't know. But she pointed me somewhere. A fox village not far from Unju, where the fox folk would know how to handle it. She wouldn't give the location free. She named a price I declined. But Mayu came out with the cherry cakes and physically blocked her flirting, and Shihu relented. She didn't know the village's exact spot either, but the fox ladies at her tea house would. Bring Ingluo next time I came to Unju, and she'd arrange a guide. I thanked her sincerely. A genuinely useful tip, wrapped in a great deal of trouble. The 10 days passed easily. On the 9th, Finn ambushed me outside the inn, not to fight, but to befriend, slinging an arm around my shoulder, insisting on buying me drinks. His affinity read a baffling 50. He genuinely wanted to reconcile. I went along. The bar he took me to was a real bar, and the truth came out. Finn, the talentless third child overshadowed by a sister who's the strongest in the city and a brother who's a brilliant commander, had made a hobby of testing whether couples were truly in love, rewarding the genuine ones, sneering at the gold diggers. A bleach blonde, in his own words, pure love warrior. A rich kid with a sickness, basically. So when you hit on Huaiwe, you were testing whether she loved me? Exactly. And then, big bro, you can hold your own against my sister. You're my ideal man. My skin crawled until he clarified, badly, that he wanted me to be his brother-in-law. To marry Natia, the only person strong enough to beat the sister whose marriage vow was that she'd only wed someone who could overpower her. At 24, undefeated, she was known in their circle, Finn whispered, as the berserk old maid. I nearly choked on my wine. I told him to drop it. I had girlfriends, romance runs on fate, and Natia and I had barely spoken. Finn pressed anyway, listing her good points, hot temper, flat, short, but, and behind him a freezing pressure descended, a low voice, hot temper, flat, short. Is that so? Natia, arrived unseen, knocked him cold with one slap, apologized to me with a furious blush, and dragged her brother out by the collar, insisting his slander, that she was too busy with city defense to bother with romance. Was just spite from a brother, she kept disciplining. On my last day, I collected my pay, frost-sealing stone, blue steel, and 50,000 silver, handed over without a quibble, which earned Angelina some real goodwill. And I used the moment to plant a seed of my own. City Lord, have you heard of the Giant Bone tribe? Her face went grim. The strongest known bottom-level tribe, full of brutal, difficult people. I redirected the thread away from myself and onto them. I'd captured 2 low-ranking Witheredwood believers, I told her, who'd revealed that a powerful church priest had come to the bottom and was likely at the Giant Bone tribe, and that the tribe had become the church's largest congregation, on its way to becoming a base. Angelina's color drained. The mid-level powers had united against the church, but couldn't even catch a single believer. This was exactly the lead they needed. She'd take it to the Iron Mountain Royals and the 5 great powers. 5 great powers? I asked, and she taught me the shape of the world. The wall splits into 2 realms, divided by an endless golden line the upper-level nobles drew across the top of the mid-levels. The upper world hoards almost all knowledge and technology, maybe even the truth of what the wall is. The middle and lower levels are one body. The bottom supplies raw materials, the middle supplies finished goods. Neither survives without the other, which is why the mid-level powers can't let the beasts run wild, because the tide that they can weather is an extinction event for the bottom. The known world, all the wall anyone's mapped, holds 5 great powers. The mouse-led Iron Mountain Kingdom, the pure human Holy Glory Kingdom, the beast-kin Golden Federation, the fox-led Sun Radiance Holy Land, and the wolf-led Bloodfawn Kingdom. How big the wall truly is, she said softly, almost to herself, nobody knows. It might not even really be a wall. She gave me the giant bone tribe's location on a map and her thanks. I went to say goodbye to Moyu, who fed me one last lunch and admitted she'd be lonely. She'd come, she told me, from the Golden Federation, alone, to open her bakery. No relatives here. I promised to visit often. She loaded me down with sweets for the household, payment for your help, she insisted, refusing my money. And on the way out, I ran into Natia beating Finn bloody outside a bar, while he screamed, "Brother-in-law, save me." The crowd had already decided I was the berserk old maid's secret fiancé. Stronger than Natia, the city lord's new hire. It all fit, and I felt like a zoo animal. Natia dragged me back to the manor to apologize in private, mortified, and over a quiet last dinner of Cloud Sea seafood, which I ordered expertly, because it was all expensive, not because I'd been here. I hadn't. She made it gently, hopefully clear there might be more on offer than thanks. I have enough wives. I came to eat. I left it there. Then I rode the shark home, fast, 10 days of missing them sitting hollow in my chest. I'm back. Zhuohua's ears twitched. She looked up before she could have heard me. Gigi flew into me like an octopus. Ingluo, Huaiwe, and Yuli came home soon after, and the house turned to welcome dinner and warmth. Yuli, though, didn't wait for night. She slipped up beside me while the others cooked, chin on my shoulder, and admitted, bluntly, jealously, that since Huaiwe had been eaten too, she'd lose the competition come nightfall, so she'd come to sneak ahead. I'll cut what follows the way I've cut all of it. What matters is she's not the silent, closed-off girl she was. By dinner, the whole table was piling food onto my plate with very obvious intent, and Gigi, bribed with everyone's share of Moyu's cookies, was the only one not in on it. Little Cake inherited the bribe, and the baby, Little Rice, said her first words, "Sister, sister bad," and then, reaching for milk in my hands, "Papa." I could not convince that child I was not her father. After the house was settled, I built the cold storage box. The materials were all on hand. Frost ceiling stone and blue steel from Angelina. Wood and stone lupia had been forced to stockpile, 2,000 points. The basic box sheathed itself in frost and turned ice blue. Then 3,000 more upgraded it to mid-tier, 100-kilo mini fridge. Cream, honey, egg yolk from the night before went in, and in the brutal summer heat, with everyone hiding in the cave and soaking in the pool, I pulled out ice cream. Gigi nearly fainted from joy. Ingluo made me chase her for it. The whole household ate it in the water, even Baigua and Little Cake. Lupia got none. I'm generous not whipping her, and Aliu didn't either, because Aliu had done nothing but sleep since spring, longer every day now, which I filed away as a strange thing to worry about later. The mouse laborers finished the 2-story house and went home loaded with strawberries, swearing to come back for any future job. I built furniture, glazed the windows, and then turned to the thing I'd been circling, the giant bone tribe, because I'd put it together. The escalating beast tides traced back to the giant bone tribe, and the giant bone tribe was very likely the tribe Yuli's mother had died fleeing. I asked her, gently, in the deep of the cave, and the moment I said the name, her whole body went rigid and her fists clenched. That was confirmation enough. I told her this wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. Unju's tide was a horizon-filling wall of beasts, and what's a manageable threat for a city is annihilation for the bottom. We weren't picking a fight. We were forced to answer one. She trembled. They're so strong. I saw one of them flatten a beast with a head bigger than a man. With one punch. I can't lose you too. I already lost my mother. And I laughed and pinched her nose. Have a little faith in your man. And who said I'm going alone? You'll bring Zhuohua? Wrong. I pointed at the white-haired dragon dozing in the corner. I'm bringing Aliu. That's the whole plan. We have a strategic-grade weapon eating us out of house and home. Why not use her? I have zero interest in the avenge it with my own strength fantasy, which is like owning a gun and insisting on a fistfight for fairness. I'd lure Aliu along with cans, and if anyone laid a hand on me there, I sincerely doubted she'd just watch. Besides, I'd go as a merchant first, to scout and negotiate, not to start a war. Yuli gave me the directions she had. 6 days fleeing west with her mother, through a great canyon, then up a stretch, vague after all these years. 6 days on foot is nothing on the shark. But Angelina's map put the giant bone tribe a year's round trip away, even though both are at the bottom. A contradiction Yoli half resolved with a memory. The men who'd held her captive used to speak of an upper clan. One tribe, perhaps, split across several sites. I'd find out when I got there. To play merchant convincingly, I needed a decent outfit, and all my clothes were ruined. My Earth originals, the system starter set, all shredded in fights, leaving only some dowdy unju commoner wear nobody would believe. So I gambled, a 10 pull, 1,000 points, hoping for clothing. No clothes. But it came up gold, the rare tier, and when the light cleared and I saw what I'd actually pulled, my pupils shrank and my breath caught. Brothers, is this right? When the gold light cleared, I was holding a Lee Enfield, a bolt-action rifle, the World War II workhorse, 10-round magazine, the gun behind that old Mad Minute, where a trained soldier could put 30 rounds downrange in 60 seconds. Against a Stone Age tribe, this was a different dimension of violence. And the system hadn't just given me the rifle, it came with 60 rounds. Brothers, is this right? I'm a law-abiding kid who'd never actually fired a gun, only watched explainer clips, so I built some plank targets and tried 5 shots. My accuracy was tragic. Worse, 60 rounds is nowhere near enough to train into competence. I dug out a slingshot I'd bought in Unju, thinking I'd practice my aim. And then I saw Gabriel at the workbench and my brain caught up. She's a machine. She has auto-aim built in. I had her take the rifle and put 3 rounds into a target. A pale blue scan beam swept the gun, analysis complete. In that ethereal voice, and 3 crisp, identical shots rang out. All 3 through the bullseye. A machine girl with a literal aimbot. Why drag the lazy dragon along when I could bring Gabriel? I woke Yuli and pulled her out, explaining as we went, change of plan, we're going to act. She panicked. She couldn't come. Someone might recognize her even after all these years. Weren't we supposed to scout? I just grinned. I've got a secret weapon now. It'll flatten the whole giant bone tribe. When she saw Gabriel waiting at the cave mouth and learned the machine was the main force, she sighed and trusted me because I'd never lied to her. The shark groaned under 3 passengers, but we'd make it by nightfall. Flying straight along the cliff was far shorter than the winding ground path she and her mother had fled. The old memories surfaced in her as the landscape blurred past. She knew every stretch, where she'd hidden, where she'd rested, where she'd bled. She kept her composure and pointed the way, but I felt her sink, and I wrapped my arms around her from behind. Don't grieve. I'll handle everything. Soon it's over. We passed through the great canyon she remembered, and there it was, the giant bone tribe, sitting on a genuinely prime piece of land. A vast open platform, and the rarest thing on the wall, running water, pouring from cliffside culverts into a little waterfall. Hovering above it, Yuli's breath went ragged. Is this the place? Yes, she rasped, biting her lip. I patted her shoulder. You'll get your accounting. I promise. Position confirmed. There was nothing left to negotiate. Why talk when I had the truth and a rifle? I set the shark down somewhere hidden, gave Gabriel and the shark their orders, and turned them loose. The trick is simple. Gabriel can't miss. That's just what an AI is. The shark grants impossible flight. Lock-on auto-aim plus a flying mount equals one thing. A massacre from the sky no one on the ground can touch. The giant bone tribe were mostly Neanfolk, Neanderthals, basically broad-framed and powerful and brow-ridged, the wild man of the popular imagination. On Earth they lost to Homo sapiens, the stat monster species that dumped every point into intelligence. But here, in a world of awakening powers, intelligence mattered far less at the bottom. Anyone clever enough had migrated up long ago, so the brawny Neanfolk had become a dominant power down here. A bald one had just finished using the slave basket and was scratching his way toward the fire when he spotted something flying. Big bird, he bellowed, hunting for a rock to throw. Then a clean crack from the sky, and a spray of blood and pink on the ground where his head had been. He didn't understand. Then he died. Crack, crack, crack. One Neen dropped per report. Even the dim ones grasped it. That bird thing screams, and one of us dies. They tried to bring it down, but it rode a near Ravager mount. Untouchable, no anti-air to speak of. Gabriel rained slaughter on them. 38 kills out of the population, the tough ones taking 2 or 3 rounds. The carnage finally drew out the Withered Wood Church's resident, a slender female filth husk named Anna, not a fumbling low believer like Knight and Denian, but a proper deacon, sent down with the priest, with real rank. She read the sky fire instantly as a firearm, a mid-level weapon, and her first thought was that the church had been exposed. Her standing order was to prioritize survival and contact the priest, so she pulled her head in, readying poison mist to flee. Then the gunfire stopped. Only one person? They shot it dry and ran. She seethed. But while Gabriel fired, I shared her vision through machine control. I'd seen Anna the whole time. So the moment the rifle went quiet, Yuli took her primordial serpent form, and I rode her in, saber high, catching the survivors completely off guard. The attack hadn't ended. It had only changed shooters. I came down on Anna. Yuli tore into the dozen-odd survivors. Anna was a ranged poison caster with no answer to a man with a 200-pound blade in her face. Her poison mist shattered against the saber before it spread. Her flesh tentacles got lopped off the moment they emerged, and she simply wasn't strong enough. Every beast girl I'd logged had stacked my numbers far past what a deacon could contest. I held back, broke 2 ribs with the flat of the blade, snapped both her legs, and collared her. Yuli's side was something else. The strong Neen had already fallen to Gabriel. What was left wasn't formidable, and the green serpent had gone berserk, a Neen's neck purpling in her coils, her scales caked with the pulp of the ones she'd crushed, a creature that had lost itself in the killing. I called to her, "Enough, Yuli. Stop." A thread of clarity returned to those muddy serpent eyes. She shook her head, slammed it twice against the ground, and shrank back into the tall girl, panting, dry heaving with nothing to bring up. I caught her, and when she found my face her nose crumpled and she broke. Wang Yin, ah. I held her shoulders and rubbed her back. It's done. It's all done. She'd dreamed this place for years, her mother's torment, the whip, the running. She'd said she'd let it go. She hadn't. The nightmare that had wrapped her whole childhood had a source, and the source was these people, and now it was finished. Her tears were tangled. Joy, release, grief, even a thread of lostness. When she'd calmed, red-eyed but lighter, she pressed her face to my neck. "Thank you." I wiped her cheeks. "What's a thank you for? It's done. Stop carrying it now." And I added, gently, I wasn't forbidding her the kills. These Neen dying was nothing to mourn. But I had questions to ask first, then they were hers. Anna, collared, refused to talk, clamped her jaw and glared, far more loyal than the 2 low believers had been. When I moved to make her, she tried to spit poison at my face, and the collar took her head clean off, the skull rolling like a ball. No information there, which left the Neen, and that was hopeless. The one in the corner was tied up and drooling against the wall. I'm an idiot for thinking I'd interrogate these people, I muttered, and raised the saber to finish them, when a frantic voice cut in. Wait, wait. An old, cunning Neen, Gugu Mallet. Logging him gave me tenacity, the same near-divine half-damage trait Yuli had awakened, plus a basic marksmanship knowledge capsule in the shop. He squirmed toward me like a maggot. "Lord, I can tell you what you want to know." Anna, he said, had come from the main tribe to capture living people for sacrifice, to harvest something and carry it back. The slaves were in the cave inside. Sacrifice? I shouldered the saber and walked toward it, Yuli following, telling me quietly, "That cave, it's where they kept me and my mother." I kicked the flimsy door to splinters. Light speared in, stench rolled out, and eyes watched me from the dark. "Come out." I killed them all. A voice answered, somebody alive, asking to be untied, and I went in. Dark vision adjusting, I saw it clearly, and I'm going to describe it the way the gravity of it demands and no further. On one side, a row of captive women, 3 cats, a mouse, a snake, 2 humans, held as slaves, their eyes long since gone dim, 2 of the cats visibly pregnant. They didn't react to the door, to the light, to me. On the other side, 5 sharper captives, for humans, and a beastkin with 2 pointed ears, the one who'd called out. Lanya Yunshao, wolf folk, 25, talent berserk. Logging her gave me blood boil. My blood came alive in my veins. A passive that accelerates circulation, kills pain mid-fight, works like an adrenaline shot. Berserker fuel. Her affinity read positive, so I cut her loose. The 4 humans read negative, so I left them tied. Yunshao stretched, her tail swinging like a propeller, and thanked me. First officer of the Bloodfawn Kingdom's Shadowstrike Corps, here investigating the Withered Wood Church before the Neen caught her. Tall, silver-haired with a red undertone, blood-red eyes that almost read dangerous until that windmilling tail undercut all of it. "Call me Wang Yin," I said, "headman of a small bottom-level outpost. Nothing worth mentioning." She clapped my shoulder. "Don't sell yourself short. You cleared this rat nest. That's no small headman." We sat in the tribe's central square and traded intel, with Gugu Mallet on the ground to cross-check. Yunxiao had trailed Anna for a long time. The church used living people in a special sacrifice, the victims withering to husks in moments, even the strongest reduced to mummies. She'd watched Anna herd people into a pit, chant, and drain them dry. And Gugu added what he'd overheard. Anna had been collecting all that life force into her own body, and once she was full, she'd sacrifice herself to their god. Even Yunxiao, who'd shadowed the church for months, hadn't heard that. Living sacrifice, harvested life force, whatever the church wanted it for, it was tangled up with the wall's beast tides. The giant bone tribe, a bottom-level tumor, met the church's need perfectly. A giant tribe in a place where the cheapest thing is human life, its resident believers serving as living batteries. It fit. I let Yuli have Gugu. She froze when she saw his face. Fear, fury, all of it crashing through her at once. "I know him." She didn't say more. I handed her my short, dull army knife. "Use this," and she drove it into him, again and again, while I turned to Yunxiao. Since the church business was settled and night was falling, we'd hole up here. She agreed. She had to report back. This was rare church intel, and she had me to thank. We built a fire and searched the tribe, nothing valuable. By the time I returned, Gugu was unrecognizable pulp. And the joke of it was, he died without ever recognizing who Yoli was. I sent her to the river to wash. She was eerily calm, flecked with gore. Then I turned to the cave. I draped cloth and hides over the 6 surviving women. There'd been a 7th cat, dead against the wall, some time ago, and crouched to speak gently in words they might understand. "It's over. Those people are dead. Come with me. I'll feed you." The mouse in the corner, about Gigi's size, met my eyes and, with practiced, dead numbness, laid down and opened herself to me. My fist clenched. On Earth there were chapters of history that looked like this. "Animals," I said, and not only the Neen. One of the Tide humans chose that moment to wheedle. "Those broken animals aren't worth your meat. Lord, untie us. We'll repay you." I beat him senseless, and his companions with him. Then I went to the fire and heated cans. Yuli came back smelling of soap jasmine, hair wet, and slid in beside me, lacing her fingers through mine without a word. "Let's bring everything into them," she said. We carried hot cans and self-heating rice into the cave, but even rich, steaming food drew nothing from those hollow women. Yunxiao came to help. She didn't understand why a fellow bottom dweller cared this much about slaves, where life is the cheapest thing, and we moved the dazed girls out, washed them at the river, settled them in a cleaned hut. When Yunxiao asked, again, why I cared, Yuli answered for me. My mother was one of them. The Neen I just killed was my father, the one who raped her. Yunxiao went quiet, then apologized. Yuli shook her head. I don't carry it anymore. The warm broth slowly reached the women. By the end, a few could lift the cans themselves, which meant they weren't past saving. Even Yunxiao, who'd seen this often enough to know the only mercy was usually a quick blade, was moved. We ate. She devoured a can, tail going, and told me to drop the lady and just call her Yunxiao. We discussed the rest, the surviving Neen, the negative affinity humans, a different slaver tribe, she explained, who sold captives up level, dog eat dog, and agreed to kill them all and push them off the cliff. Yunxiao took first watch. By her affinity, I trusted her. I took Yuli to a hut. I'll cut what passed between us there the way I always do. What stays is what Yuli said after, in the dark with the cicadas droning, that she'd dreamed of that cave for years, of running with chained legs and a voiceless throat, waking in terror every time, and that she wouldn't anymore. You're so good to me. I really, really like you. The most direct confession there is, and it set my heart going. And it crystallized something I'd been circling. I told her I'd decided to build something. Just our household was a peaceful life, but it wasn't a lasting one. To protect my family, I needed real footing at the bottom, a power that the big players had to reckon with. I couldn't pin everything on Aliu. A dragon is an uncertain factor. I'm going to do what these tribal headmen do. I'm going to build our own tribe. I noticed, The next morning, an odd damp patch where Yunxiao had been sitting. I let it go. Yunxiao left at dawn with 2 cans and a warning that they'd vanish 3 hours after opening. The system's iron reclamation feature to stop me farming free metal. Until we meet again. Then I ferried the 6 rescued girls home in the Shark, 3 trips, working the poor Mount half to death and promising it a long vacation. Zhuohua had everything ready. The new 2-story house finished, the girls in their own rooms, the rescued women settled in the old straw shelters. She already knew my plan from Yoli, and we sat down to it. Integrate the surrounding tribes, starting with the mice. Whoever can feed a tribe leads it, I told her. Bottom-level tribes have no loyalty. Give people a good life, and they come. Those 5 mouse laborers are my best billboard. I'll bet you their whole chief follows me home. She did. I went back with a crate of strawberries. Big mouse, 10 berries. Small mouse, 5. And the village dissolved into chaos. The laborers I'd hired vouching loudly that the master fed you meat if you worked. Their chief, Jin Yinju, was the only sharp one among 50. She saw exactly what I was doing, taking the tribe, and agreed without hesitation. There's no real chief at the bottom. The clever lead, that's all. The mice never have enough. We breed too many. Every year cubs starve. I want to eat my fill, and I want my people fed. I looked at this woman who didn't reach my chest and reassessed her. Then be good, and no one starves while I'm here. 50 mice, 32 adults, 18 young, and a great mouse migration began, ferried in small batches so the beast attacks, which scale with headcount, wouldn't overwhelm them. Settling them in took a month. A giant mortise and tenon double-decker bunk to sleep all 50, a cotton blanket and hide for each, a shared kitchen and dining hall on a fixed schedule, separate from the household. Our food's better. I put Gigi in charge as my translator foreman, walled the outer cliff with stone and cement, deliberately leaving gaps so attacking beasts would funnel where I could pre-station defenders. Food was covered, 20 kilos of rice a day off the farm, against 25 total consumption, plus a plot turned over to strawberries and the mice's own foraging. I built brick kilns at last, taught the mice to fire brick and burn charcoal, set up a herb collection bounty, 30 strawberries per medicinal plant, and the colony ran. Then I bought the personality core Yunxiao's Wolf Codex had unlocked, 4,000 points, a dim greenish sphere that gave a true consciousness to a machine. The system asked me to write Gabriel's base personality, like an AI's initial settings. I wrote, grinning. Thinks for herself, loves overtime, devoted to solving the master's problems. All things prioritize the master, lights up with enthusiasm when given new work. Capitalist's dream. The more she works, the more eager she gets. And at the end, the load-bearing line. Forever loyal to the master, will never betray him. The sphere drifted into Gabriel's forehead. A heartbeat thump sounded from nowhere. The green light sank in, and her panel rewrote. Gabriel, machine folk. Age 1, loyalty, infinity. Talent, swappable modules. The first time I'd ever seen affinity replaced by loyalty. And instead of a new passive, she unlocked a whole new system module, a one-to-one upgrade system bonded to her. Chips for raw stats, parts for specialization, a battery, an extra pair of arms, external gear, guns, blades, armor, drones, all on a daily refresh shop. Another point-devouring feature, and worth every point. I'd remembered the Valkyrie machine that came to collect Dilia, and now I had the means to build Gabriel into something like it. Maybe stronger. Master. A sweet voice, with a natural liveliness under the data streams. Gabriel opened her eyes, newly curious, studying me like an infant seeing the world. Master, am I alive now? I rubbed her head. Best 4,000 points I'd ever spent. Yes, from now on, you're a living person. I introduced her to the household as a real girl now, one of our founding members. The girls were baffled. We already know Gabriel, until she spoke, soft and warm and human where she'd always been cold, and they got it. Ziji worked out that she eats but doesn't sleep and accepted it cheerfully. But Zhuohua stayed silent, and afterward pulled me into her room and admitted, quietly, that she didn't like the machine. Not that she wanted Gabriel gone. She just needed to say it. As a salamander, she carried it in her bones. In the upper world, machines had hunted her people near to extinction, and when Gabriel smiled and waved at her, dread rose up from somewhere old. I'm sorry. I made you worry. I told her the truth. Gabriel isn't really a machine anymore. She's a living 1-year-old girl with everything still to learn, and as the household's mistress, I was counting on Joahua to teach her patiently. She agreed to set the hatred down and try. And then she asked the question that ambushed me. You'll take Gabriel too, won't you? Every sister but Gigi was mine now. She didn't mind, but she set one rule about women from outside. No bad ones, or she'd throw them out, because the others were too trusting to defend themselves. Joahua was my first woman on the wall, my first wife, and she knew her place. She wouldn't fence me in given what my ability is, but she'd guard the household against rot. Fair. I scratched my head and let, maybe not impossible, hang there. The seasons turned. The mice churned out thousands of bricks a day and learned charcoal burning. The 6 rescued girls recovered enough to feed themselves, no longer the husks I'd carried home. Lupia, the flame demon, the colony's #0 laborer, sat below even the mice, who are free. She is a slave they freely abuse, several of them having lost family to her kind. I planned to dismiss her before winter by deleting her account, once the mice had had their fun. As a light autumn rain fell, I caught a drop in my palm and realized, a full year since I drowned into this world. Autumn's here. I asked Jinyinju how the mice survive winter. She told me, lo, huddled in caves for warmth, the strong outside and the children and old inside, no one leaving once the cold set in. And still, every winter, several froze, and many lost fingers and toes. She held up her hand. Her left ring finger ended at a stump. Go take everyone's measurements, I said. Gabriel will help. Come winter, every single mouse gets a padded coat. She nearly cried. The bunkhouse erupted coats. Every mouse. The master's kindness can never be repaid. And I frowned. Where the hell are they learning to talk like that? Beside me, Gabriel, freshly able to feel things, was biting back a grin. Good. That was the point of her. 2 new farm plots cost 6,500 points and most of 2 weeks at 70 per plot sunfruit yield. The price of the virtual sun blueprint, 35,000, still far off. But I had the labor and the infrastructure now, which left Ingluo. Her behavior had grown more frequent, harder to satisfy. I'm cutting the specifics, but she whose warning in Unju had been right. The trace of Desire Lin blood was spreading, and Ingluo was at risk of drifting towards something that would reduce her to a single appetite. I genuinely didn't want that for her. So I told Joahua I was taking Ingluo to Unju to consult her own kind. Then I sat the bewildered fox down on the shark and explained that her star tongue was getting stronger and she was clinging harder. And no, she didn't want to become a creature who could think of nothing else. And she buried her face, ears wilting, and agreed to go. I'll admit, lo, that I didn't actually mind. That's not the point. The trend would only worsen, and I wanted it fixed. Unju greeted me as a hero. The guard saluted Wang Ji and muttered, just loud enough, that I was engaged to Lady Natia. A bleach-blonde face swam up in my mind, and my fist clenched. Fen. The rumor had metastasized. Ingluo tilted her head. Who's Natia? And I deflected. A girl I barely know. I took her to Shihu's tea house. The dark-skinned fox brightened at my voice, and the timing was perfect. The experts she'd promised were drinking tea right then. She led us to a private room where 2 fox girls sat. Yuma, pink-haired and elegant, and Huzhao, black-haired with red eyeshadow and a genuinely dangerous edge. The 3 were old adventuring party comrades. Yuma, the book reader, examined Ingluo's ears and tail and confirmed it. A Desire Lin/ordinary spirit half-blood whose awakening had ignited the dominant bloodline, likely because the Desire Lin parent had been very strong. And when Ingluo balled her fists and declared she didn't want to become a dumb thing that only thinks about being lewd, the room cracked up, because Yuma herself is a Desire Lin, prim and reserved and still untouched, nothing like the pleasure slave stereotype Shihu had described. Desire Lin, Yuma explained, aren't all slaves to appetite. There are methods to master it, just rarely used. Then Ingluo showed her power. Every hair and her whole tail wreathed in brilliant, harmless flame, lighting the room, leaving the wood and cloth untouched, as if there were no heat at all. The 3 foxes went slack-jawed. I think I know who your mother was, Yuma said softly. Only Lord Shengyang had a power like that. Huzhao nodded. Ingluo's mother, they explained, was the fox's last sun heaven sorcerer. the most powerful awakener their people ever had, who died 17 years ago in a beast tide. The widely circulated rumor that she'd secretly born a child was apparently true. I filled in the rest from what Zhuohua had told me, how Yingluo ended up a slave trader's captive at the bottom, and the foxes were outraged on her behalf. A hero's daughter, sold into chains. What were the Holy Land's people doing? Something shady, they suspected, and could do nothing about, being commoners. Yingluo took it quietly. She'd never met this mother, never thought of her, but the news of her death left a strange hollow. Yuma offered, come back to the Fox Village to train, both to master the desire Lin urges and to learn proper control of her flame, which she was wasting without a teacher. Yingluo looked to me, and I told her the truth. Whatever you choose, I support it. She wanted to go. She could grow stronger, protect everyone better, but she'd never been apart from family. With my encouragement, and Yuma's promise to give me the village's location so I could visit often, she steeled herself and agreed. That evening we visited Moyu, who'd perfected the milk tea I'd suggested, dry roasting sugar with the tea leaves, then slow simmering with milk, and it was nearly indistinguishable from home. I suggested a layer of cream on top for variety, and she lit up like I'd handed her a continent. Over dinner at the seafood restaurant Natia had taken me to, Moyu asked, casually, whether I was here about the marriage to Lady Natia, and I nearly sprayed my water across the table. The rumor had reached her. Apparently the city had decided that the Lord's new champion, stronger than her undefeated daughter, was obviously the secret fiancé. Somewhere out there was a bleach blonde head I very much wanted to relocate. Does Natia herself even know she's getting married? We went home. I gathered the household and told them Yingluo was leaving for a while to train. The mood dropped. She wasn't little Cookie, she'd grown up with all of them. But I promised regular visits once I had the village's location, and Zhuohua, steady as ever, told her to go, to study hard, to not be homesick, and to come straight home if anyone wronged her so she could settle it. That last night, in the dark with Zhuohua, Yingluo finally cried. Not for the seduction stuff I'm cutting, but for a mother she never met, the hollow that opened when she learned the woman was dead. Zhuohua held her like she had when they were small and the thunder came, and told her it was all right to miss a mother, even one she couldn't remember, because that mother had surely loved her. Look how lovely you turned out. Yingluo wept herself empty and slept. In the morning I packed her things, and Gabriel, newly thoughtful, came out and pressed Dilia's shield belt into Yingluo's hands, fully recharged. This will protect you. Yingluo thanked her with a real smile. The sisters sent her off loaded with gifts and tears. Gigi had hoarded cookies in her pack, and we rode for Anju. But the port felt wrong. Too many guards. The mouse knights standing watch when that's not even their job. I grabbed a guard, who pivoted from snarling to fawning the instant he saw my face. Ah, the son-in-law's back. And told me grandees were arriving tomorrow. Connell, run ragged on the docks, caught my arm before I could leave. Wang Ji, wait, this concerns you. Me? The intelligence you gave my mother has been fully confirmed by all 5 great powers. The link between the Witheredwood Church and the Giant Bone Tribe is established. Tomorrow, every power sends an envoy to Anju for a joint summit. A joint summit? I asked. Why hold it in Anju? Connell explained. Anju belongs to no power, a free, independent city-state. And since the intelligence came from his mother, the meeting landed here. And Anju had collected favors from all 5 powers for it. All thanks to me. So would I please stop refusing and let him host me properly? I let him win. Free benefits are free benefits. Fine. But I've got something urgent to handle first. I'll come by tonight. He glanced at Yingluo, clocked she wasn't the cat from last time, and said nothing. I took Yingluo to Shihu's tea house. Shihu latched onto my arm. Yingluo elbowed her off in her usual territorial way, and Shihu just laughed and pinched Yingluo's cheek. She led us to Yuma and Huzhao. Everything packed? We leave tomorrow. But Huzhao hesitated. The guards were oddly busy, something big tomorrow. Leaving then might mean delays. I explained. The 5 powers were sending envoys for a joint summit on the Witheredwood Church. Yuma's face darkened. We leave. Now. Because if the powers were coming, the Fox power, the Sun Radiant's holy land, was coming, and Yingluo, as the secret child of their dead hero, had no idea how the Holy Land felt about her. Likely hostile. Best to be long gone. I pulled Yingluo's pack from storage. She'd hoped for one more night with me. Instead, I was strapping her bag on. Be good. Listen to Yuma and Huzhou. Study hard. I'll visit often. She hesitated, then threw her arms around my neck and kissed me, long, before letting go. You have to come see me. Yuma led the three of them out. The door closed, and Shihu purred her usual offer, that she'd never once been with a man. Would I be her first? I sighed and pulled my arm out of the void. Stop messing with me, Shihu. The tea house was empty, no customers, and I could have taught this lunatic a lesson, but reason won and I fled before I did something stupid. She, a mere mirage spirit, was somehow more dangerous than Yuma the actual Desire Lin. At the manor, Natia was waiting, and I greeted her warmly. Then, all smiles, is Finn home? I've missed him. Could I see him? She got fidgety, sighed, and had the butler wheel out a mummy in a wheelchair, bandaged head to toe, mumbling. This is Finn, my poor brother. He fell down the stairs recently. Didn't you, dear brother? The mummy nodded frantically. Stairs. Compound fractures. Truly a mystery. Looking at the bleach blonde paralyzed in his chair beside his gently smiling little sister torturer, most of my anger drained away. The slanderer had been brought to justice. Over a Western dinner with Natia and Connell, Angelina was on the road back, escorting the Iron Mountain envoy. Natia delivered the line I'd been waiting for. Her mother had insisted I name whatever I wanted, and the manor would provide it. I'd thought this through. Not greedy, not nothing, a reasonable ask. I'd like a place to stay in Unju for future trips. Nothing large. I won't live there, just a base. Natia lit up. A residence meant binding me closer to Unju, exactly what they wanted. She decided on the spot. 3 streets over sat a private mansion belonging to Finn, who, gravely injured, clearly wouldn't be using it. Connell nearly choked. Sister, he's hurt, not dead. You're giving his house away? But said nothing, because he understood my value and his brother's house was a fair price. I tried to refuse a son of the city lord's mansion. Natia insisted it was the only empty room. It was not. I caved and didn't dare ask for more supplies on top of it, though I did get one modest thing in. Send my mice here, train them as servants. Done, she said. The butler Sam had 30 years' experience. The summit business settled, the dinner ended, and Natia rode with me to show me the new mansion. The inner city, carved into the cliff, is lit by light stones, twice refined minerals that glow for about half a month before being swapped. Finn's place was a 3-floor affair, grander than any rich merchant's, immaculate, dripping aristocracy. Maids lined up at the gate. From now on you belong to Wang Yan, Natia told them. Obey him. She walked me through reception, kitchen, servants' quarters below, guest rooms, bath, dressing rooms on the second, master suite, and study on top. Better than the house I'd built at home by an order of magnitude. For a second, I wanted to move the whole household in. Then she left. A short-haired head maid introduced herself. Lily, with a tear mole at the corner of her eye. Cool and tall, not at all maid-like. She insisted that whether or not the master lived here, a maid's duty stood. There was no present or absent, only negligent or not. She'd drawn a hot bath. I'll skip the over-attentive bathing the source dwells on. Behold, greedy capital. Behold, decadent nobility. And note only that when she later, matter-of-factly, began undressing in the master bedroom, explaining that as head maid she was the master's property and owed him her first night to prove her loyalty, I sent her out. This mansion is a hotel I can check into. Nothing more. I wasn't going to bind a stranger to me over a whim in a city that isn't my base. She left, head down, thinking who knows what. Morning. After breakfast, a butler with a neat goatee introduced himself. Hawkins Gudrian, appointed by Natia to manage the residence, talent erudite, mastery of management, and frail. I told him I wouldn't live here, so he and Lily should coordinate. And I made one structural move. I named Lily co-housekeeper, the female counterpart to his butler role, so Hawkins wouldn't hold sole authority. If he misbehaved while I was away, there'd be someone to check him. He bowed, smile unchanged, eyes flickering just once. I'll coordinate with Lady Lily. Then the carriage to the manor. Angelina back early. The other guests due that afternoon. In her study, travel-worn but warm, she gripped my hand. Thanks to your intelligence, the powers that were lost now have direction, and Unju collected enormous benefits, reduced taxes, dozens of bulk trade orders, the equivalent of 2 years of the city's income from this one event. I waved it off. She wouldn't let me. And I've heard the rumors my useless youngest son spread about you and Natia. I told her it was fine. Finn had been punished enough. She shook her head. I don't mean that. I mean, his suggestion isn't unworkable. Natia respects you. The eldest daughter of the manor could just about match your standing. The fake had become real?